welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more.
I'm Lexi, older sister and fantasy lore nerd.
And I'm Nicole, younger sister and romantic at heart.
And today is episode 10 of Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, where we're covering chapters 50 through 55. Who's ready for another episode where a whole lot happens?
I think that's going to be the case for these final few episodes of this deep dive.
But before we begin, please listen closely to our spoiler warning. Every episode has spoilers for the entire Empyrean series, including all of Onyx Storm, Iron Flame, and Fourth Wing, which means even though this episode 10 focuses on chapters 50 through 55, we are pulling in themes, lore, foreshadowing, and more from the entire book. There's not a whole lot more to pull, but we're pulling it.
Second, signet. If you don't know what it is, then good God, please go finish Onyx Storm. We will be here when you're done. We're not ruining this for you. We waited too long.
Next, we of Fantasy Fangirls are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
If you, like us, screamed expletives when Andarna left Violet, then you will be in good company today, as we most likely do it again. So please be mindful of those little listening ears.
Additionally, we are so excited to see you at upcoming live events. We will be featured guests at Enchanticon in St. Louis, Missouri, August 15th through 17th.
Then we will be at the Everflame Ball along with Penn Cole for the first ever Kindred's Curse Saga Ball on August 30th in Castle Rock, Colorado. We will also be back at the Dragon Gauntlet in Boyne City, Michigan, September 12th through 13th.
Then Romantasy BookCon in Orlando, Florida, October 23rd through 25th, where, in case you missed the news, we are interviewing Rebecca Yarros again, this time at Disney World.
Check out our website or the links below for more information to all of these events.
Last thing before we jump into this Onyx Storm episode 10, if you love Fantasy Fangirls and want more events, more content, more community, and so much more, please check out Fantasy Fan Club.
We have 3 fan club tiers that you can join. Number 1, the Cadets, which includes access to our Boppin' Discord, live Q&As from Lexi and I, a book club, which this month we're reading What Lies Beyond the Veil, exclusive author interviews, community events like our Onyx Storm trivia in a few weeks. I'm so excited. Promo codes to live events, plus 20% off all merch. That is for $6 a month. Or you can join the Dragon Riders, which includes everything from the cadet level, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines, and special voting privileges. That is for $10 a month. And last but not least, we have the Iron Squad, which includes everything from the previous 2 tiers, plus behind-the-scenes content, a welcome gift, giveaways, private Discord channel, and your name shouted out on the podcast. That is for $25 a month.
Join the party at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes. And really and truly, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for supporting us as we've turned this podcast into a dream come true. It's all because of you.
And now it is time to learn about and do our best to explain Violet's dedication to the goddess Dune.
All right, and to start us off with all that happens this episode, Nicole is going to do us the honor of summarizing what happens in this stretch of chapters. So listen up, friends, because Battle Brief is in session for chapters 50 through 55 of Onyx Storm. Take it away, Nicole.
Chapter 50. Dreamwalk alert. Guess who's back? Back again. It's the Sage, and he's ready for someone to be delivered. Gasping awake, Violet reaches towards Zaden for comfort, but what's this? He's also trapped in a nightmare. Shaking him awake, the pair finally, after 2 books, talk about their dreams. And would you look at that? Violet's second signet is officially confirmed. It's dream walking time, baby. And don't you worry, we are going deep into what the heck that might mean. But alas, there's not much time to figure out what the other 90% of her signet could be, because there's a horde of Wyvern approaching, and they're only 10 minutes out. Can the Wyvern ever let this duo finish a second signet conversation? Chapter 51. After Violet receives her orders and is halfway out the door, Arik bursts in with a very cryptic, "You have to protect Dune's temple." You know, Arik, it would have been a lot easier if you just announced right away why and how you knew this information, but dramatic tension wins again. And anyway, that's a problem for later, because it's time to mount the grumpy curmudgeon who hates taking orders from others and feels the need to remind Violet of this again. The riders are off to fight the horde in the utter darkness, with only Violet's lightning as a light source. Where's Zaden when you need him to see just how big a strike Violet can make? make? For striking down Wyvern, of course. The Wyvern are on a collision course with Dune's temple, but have no fear, Andarna is here, after totally not abandoning her assigned post. Whoops. But she can't do this alone, so Tyrrendor dives in for the incoming Wyvern. He only gets one roly-poly attack in before his pain erupts down the bond. Oh no! Chapter 52. Tyrrendor ever so gracefully crashes into the field with a new fun piercing fashion trend in tow. I mean, who wouldn't want a giant Wyvern wing spur lodged in your leg? It's a damn good thing Rhiannon is here to save the day by pulling it out of him like it's no more than a stick in the mud. But our huzzas are going to be short-lived because Theophony is back. Hi, bestie! With only enough time to say a quick hey there, hi there, ho there to her old Dune sorority sisters before she leaves in quite the hurry. Who didn't leave? The Wyvern! Violet reaches for her power to strike the Wyvern down when out of nowhere they start falling, really crashing, out of the sky. What's this? Arashia officially has a fully functioning wardstone! Huzzah! But how is that possible? There's not another Irid to breathe fire on it. Please welcome back to the stage, Leoan! Chapter 53. Leoan barely says hello before he's off to the races judging everyone for their abhorrent actions. At least Andarna's actions are honorable. But the emotional whiplash doesn't end there, so buckle up, buttercups, because it's time to take inspiration from Sophie's choice. Andarna has to make an impossible decision. Stay and never learn about her den, or break the bond with Violet and leave with Leoan. Violet, knowing Andarna won't make the choice herself, encourages Andarna to make the decision that will make her happiest. And a moment later, the bond is broken. Chapter 54. 3 days later, Violet is still going strong in her one-man band with a set list of sad songs only. But like any big sister, Mira steps in here to snap Violet out of it, which surprisingly just takes her presence and accompanying sass. But hold up, there's a knock on the door. Who could that be? It's Big Brother Brennan! With all 3 Sorrengails in one room, plus Zaden, they start doing what they do best. Bickering! Having just returned to the land of the living, Violet retreats to a bath while Zaden washes her hair and Nicole melts! Back in the bedroom, Mira and Brennan are still arguing. About what this time? Oh, just Violet's partial dedication to Dune and the fact that she might turn Venin. What? And just to increase the stakes, Zaden decides to open his mouth and tell Mira a secret. He is the one who turned Venin. Oh, and everyone else knew. Sorry, not sorry. Chapter 55. It's back to Rune's class, and without Andarna's power to weave, it's like trying to dig a small hole in the ground with TNT. Not exactly the most effective tool for the job. But Quinn says, hold my beer, and gives Violet a much-needed Runes for Dummies lesson. And hey, it works. Kinda. It's better than nothing. From bedbound to burnout, Violet leaves herself no time to think about Andarna while she helps prep for the upcoming war. But war preparations aren't all sunshines and rainbows. Bodhi is not handling being benched very well. He might not have the Ryerson name, but his blood makes him first in line to the Arashia throne, which Zaden is giving him the unwanted crash course for. But even dukes preparing for their own demise need a break sometimes. Detour to the throne room, anyone? And then it fades to black.
Thank you so much for that, Nicole. Hey, friends, when was the last time you needed to go to the doctor, but you pushed it back? And we use the excuses, oh, I'm too busy, I can't find my insurance card, I have to read one more chapter of my latest book obsession. I think we've all been there because, hey, booking a doctor appointment can feel a little daunting. But thanks to ZocDoc, there's no reason to delay. They make it so easy to find and book a doctor who's right for you.
ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with over 100,000 doctors across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, and much more. You can filter for doctors who take your insurance, are located nearby, and are a good fit for any medical needs you may have.
Once you find the right doctor, you can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time slot that works best for you, and click to instantly book a visit. Appointments made through ZocDoc also happen really fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. Huzzah!
We use ZocDoc, and you should too. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments today and go to ZocDoc.com/FF to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/FF. ZocDoc.com/FF.
All right, writers, it is time to don our signet power and discuss key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing, theories, and so much more. The name of this segment is actually very fitting as we open with another Violet but really Zaden's dream. Violet/Zaden is back in the field outside Drathis, with lightning flashing above and outlining dozens of wings in the sky. This is foreshadowing for during the final battle when Violet will be wielding her lightning as often as she can to take down as many Wyvern as possible.
It is also a nice nod to Imogen's chapter, which will primarily take place in the center spiraling tower that Zaden/Violet notices in the distance that immediately makes them think it's Drathis. This is sadly also where Quinn is killed.
In this dream, Violet/Zaden tries to attempt to head in that direction, but their legs won't obey. The sage Berwyn appears out of nothing and blocks their path, warning Violet/Zaden that he is getting tired of waiting.
This is probably just a coincidence, maybe, but the line for Berwyn entering the dream is, quote, he steps out of nothingness. Nothingness we also associate with the box that Zaden got from the Zanal card game. So, I don't know, it's just that word really stood out to me. So is it Berwyn tying to Zaden's box of nothingness? I know when we talked about that episode, there was the idea that maybe we can only use the box of nothingness in dreams, and in dreams it contains somethingness. But I just love that there was that the nothingness tied, because that's not a common word.
I think this is a nod to Berwyn being a dreamwalker himself. I feel like that's pretty clear that that is what he is. And in chapter 56, well, we won't be talking about it this episode, Violet will be able to recognize that she is in Zaden's dream, and she will snap into her own being within his dream. I wonder if she came out of nothingness as well to be able to communicate with him. Violet/Zaden tries to summon their power, but it won't come. Their magic never works here in these nightmares.
Pause, because hers technically does. There's lightning flashing in the distance, and technically hers is working because she's being a dreamwalker right now. So I wonder if in the next book we will see her wield, I'm going to say more intentionally, because it's Zaden's dream, he's not wielding. But maybe if she snaps out of it again, maybe she'll be able to wield more intentionally. So again, it's like I'm looking at these little passages and wondering what might be some ways for her to hone her signet later.
I see what you're saying with that. And I do think that that lightning off in the distance, that's not this Violet wielding her power.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so I do wonder if she would be able to wield beyond her dreamwalking signet. But Berwyn's power does work here, and invisible icy fingers grab their throat and yank them into the air.
Yes, tying Berwyn with our ice watch. This is not good, but it's also kind of delicious.
Okay, now this next part is especially interesting. Berwyn says, quote, you are ours. You will bring what I want or she dies. I'm through waiting, and I will not allow her to win such a prize. Violet/Zaden searches the sky for a familiar set of wings as they hear, quote, her scream, but don't see any wings in the sky as it begins to rain harder, which leads Violet/Zaden to respond, quote, you do not have her. Berwyn vows, but I will, because you'll bring her to me. I had initially thought Berwyn was referring to Violet as the she he is threatening, but it sounds more like he's talking about Sigale here. Here's how I understand who Berwyn is referring to with all these female pronouns. You will bring what I want. As Zaden will confirm shortly when they are awake, Berwyn the Sage is speaking of Violet as the thing he wants. Then Berwyn goes on to say, I will not allow her to win such a prize. Violet is the prize, and the other her here is Theophony. So Berwyn wants Zaden to bring him Violet so that Theophony doesn't get this prize instead.
So this got me thinking. Yes, they want Zaden and Violet because they are two incredibly powerful wielders, both of who have second signets. But what if the other reason they want them is because they're trying to have their own version of the six most powerful? Ooh. It's been a minute since we've brought this up, so I'm going to do a little TLDR. Earlier in this book, we learned that there were 6 powerful signets, assuming this was the same signets of the first 6, and they were part of the crew who defeated the Venom the first time 600 years ago. And 2 of them we know were shadows and lightning wielders. So what if the Venom want their own version of those 6 most powerful signets so that they can't be stopped like they were last time? Which, if that's the case, some of the others we assume might include distance wielding, which this could be a point for Garrick turning brother at the end.
If Zaden doesn't comply, Sigale is the she who will die, because that's when Zaden looks up trying to find Sigale in the sky, and I assume that's who he hears scream. And Sigale is who Zaden is referring to when he says, "You do not have her." After all, we know Berwyn will capture Sigale to bring Zaden to heal. So he's saying here that Zaden will bring Sigale to him, because we know that during the final battle, Zaden will be unwillingly summoned to Berwyn. And I assume that, of course, Sigale will follow Zaden there. Then in the stream, Violet will look down at her hand as she flexes her fingers ready to pull from the earth. But her hand, it doesn't look like hers. It's a sexy man's hand with a relic. The way we were reading this and freaking out as the puzzle pieces came together a few pages before it does for Violet, it was so exhilarating. Despite feeling the call of the power coursing through the ground, Violet tells herself that no, this is wrong, and she forces herself to wrench the hand from the ground and wake up. Berwyn the Sage taunts that Drathus will fall and, quote, yours will be next, meaning Arashia. Still trying to wake up, Violet/Zaden finds the sword of Tyrrendor at their throat, and just as the Sage is about to swing it, Violet wakes up.
So again, this is so interesting that Berwyn here has the sword of Tyrrendor, but he won't later at the Battle of Drathus. It's only in the dreams. I really think that this is foreshadowing for Berwyn being an ancestor of Zaden's. I don't think it's the grandfather who Sigale bonded because of the line, quote, I waited centuries for one with your power. His grandfather was only 50 years before him, so I don't think that would be the case. But the fact that he has the sword feels like it's way too on the nose, and the fact that it's mentioned multiple times.
I could definitely see that. I always think that it's more of a representation of Zaden and being a duke and how it's really like his responsibilities versus being a Venin.
Maybe it's both.
Maybe it is. After waking Zaden up to pull him out of his nightmares and offering him reassurance, our two lovebirds begin talking about these bad dreams they have. As Violet shares what happens in her reoccurring nightmare, we sense a shift in Zaden. He's tense and oddly urgent about getting clarification about Violet's dreams. Because yes, the hand she saw in her dream was indeed Zaden's. And her dream was Zaden's dream. She was in Zaden's dream. The moment we've been waiting 50 chapters for, ladies and gentlemen. Violet's second signet is dreamwalking. Over the next 2 hours, Violet tells Zaden about every dream she can remember with the Sage. And yep, Zaden has had every single one. All those dreams she had in Iron Flame, they were Zaden's dreams. But doesn't this just mean they're having the same dream? Could this be an effect of their bond? No, Zaden explains, because in his dreams, he feels like someone was there with him, watching, including tonight. And it's the exact same scenario. Even when they're far away from each other, she's been able to dreamwalk with him, probably thanks to their bond. The only other person's dream she has walked into was Marin's when they were sleeping in the same room. During this bombshell of a revelation, Violet understandably is in some denial. Maybe walking into Zaden's dreams is possible because of their bond, but there's no such thing as dreamwalking, right? It's not until she asks Andarna if it's true that poor Violet begins shaking and processing that a form of Intrinsic is her second signet.
One of the biggest questions we had in the lead up to Onyx Storm is Violet's second signet, given that we know signets manifest based off of who you are at your core and what you need. So we were so hyperfixated on she needs information, she needs the truth, she needs a whole slew of those types of things with history and all this stuff. What we at Fantasy Fangirls did not weigh in here was how much she needed Andarna when her dragon was in the dreamless sleep. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I was like, what the fuck? It took me about 24 hours for this to actually sink in, and it was a little bit of acceptance. I had to go through a journey, but rethinking about how Violet constantly was asking about Andarna during that time in Iron Flame, how much she missed her, how much she desperately wanted to see her again, it makes so much sense. She was cut off from Andarna, one of her closest bonds, for months. Because Violet missed Andarna and felt that need to be with her mind to mind, she unknowingly manifested a dream walking signet because Andarna was in a dreamless sleep. But just like Zaden can't use his mind signet on dragons, Violet cannot go walking into dragons' minds while they sleep and walk into their dreams. Instead, she developed this signet on Zaden, then branched out from there to Marin, which Andarna has known about this second signet this whole time. However, like how Taryn didn't tell Violet about when she manifested pure power in the form of lightning when she wielded it for the first time during her and Zaden's first kiss, Andarna also waited for Violet to discover the signet on her own. But Andarna does say something quite interesting when she admits to her knowledge of Violet's second signet. Quote, "You have been known to wander while dreaming. It's harmless. You're mostly drawn to him." So there's a moment in part 2 of Iron Flame where Violet is suddenly with Zaden when he's supposed to be on a mission. This is right after she walks into one of his dreams, but suddenly they're in bed together. We pass this off as a quick trip home during Iron Flame coverage, but Andarna saying wander here, especially wander while dreaming, feels really different, especially because as her and Zaden are talking in this chapter, she's mentioned how she's had dreams of his even when he's miles away. So what does she mean by wandering while dreaming? Because that feels more than dream walking. Like, I don't think this is the case, but this sounds almost like she can distance walk to a place where she's in someone's dream. I don't think that's the case because that would be too convenient for book 4. But I don't know, that line just really stood out to me.
I think that's just her subconscious wandering into someone else's subconscious.
That's how I read it the first few times. But then thinking back to that moment in Iron Flame, where that raised a lot of flags for a lot of people. And then also them saying how she's able to have dreams even when he's hundreds of miles away. Something's not adding up here.
Violet has the same question that many of us had in regard to what the ear had said to Andarna about Violet's second signet at the end of chapter 41. Quote, "And you, our very last hope, have handed this human something far more dangerous to wield, haven't you?" Leading us to the question, what exactly is so dangerous about dreamwalking? Especially when Zaden just said that Andarna's kind are peaceful and the ability itself would be passive. But you see, dreamwalking is a form of intensic. She may not read minds, but she can walk straight into them when someone is unconscious. She has the ability to enter someone's mind when they are most vulnerable, aka when they're sleeping and unable to shield. The simple fact that Violet accidentally walked into Zaden's dreams and invaded his privacy is proof of just how dangerous the signet is. Imagine what she can do when she hones his dreamwalking ability. Don't worry, we will spend plenty of time imagining in just a few moments. Because Violet has unfettered access to enter people's minds when they're sleeping and therefore not able to shield against her, this is clearly a security risk kind of intensic, which means if anyone finds out, Violet will be killed. Zaden warns that it won't matter if she's the continent's best weapon against the Venom. She won't be allowed to live with this kind of mind signet. Think of other mind signets where the writer is allowed to live and in fact they are honed into a weapon. Dane, he can look into people's memories, but it requires touch. Yes, as far as we know. So that's a way of controlling his signet. Or Varish, who didn't need to touch others to see people's weaknesses, but he isn't looking into people's thoughts, intentions, etc. It's only one aspect of their mind. It's a fine line, though one that is certainly there. Gleaning insight into a part of someone's mind is okay, especially when there are perimeters, but actively reading minds is the definition of an intensic. Except, again, Violet isn't technically doing that. She's going into people's dreams, and while our dreams are our subconscious, they don't always make the most sense or offer security risk type of insight. I know that if Violet walked into my dreams, all she knows is that I have some serious anxiety issues.
She would know that you and I were both waitresses for a long time, and we really stress over getting people water on time.
Yes, exactly. What I'm trying to say is, who cares if she's able to see someone's dreams? But again, Zaden explains that's not all this is. Violet meddled into Knight's dream. He wanted to pull from the source, but she stopped him. He already understands this is so much more than simply seeing others' dreams. And if this is what she's already able to do by accident without even knowing this is her second signet, Violet can potentially have far more power and control over people's minds than anyone allowed to live should.
When we interviewed Rebecca Yarros back in February in Denver, we asked her what % of the second signet we've seen from Violet. And she said 10%. I'm fucking sorry. Only 10?
By the end of Onyx Storm, here's what we know about Violet's second signet of dreamwalking. And again, this is only 10% so far. Violet can enter people's dreams while she herself is also sleeping. She can either experience the dream as the person who is dreaming, like she has been doing with Zaden all this time, or as she learns how to do in chapter 56, she can snap out of being the dreaming person and exist in her own body in their dream. She does this when she realizes it's not her dream, but someone else's. Berwin will say she's a quick learner. And what's more, she's able to communicate with those in the dream. When someone is dreaming, they feel like someone is watching over them in the dream. At least that's how Zaden feels. And more importantly, it feels that she can alter the course of action within the dream. Like in this dream when Violet made him raise his hand instead of pulling from the source. So Violet's dreamwalking signet doesn't just let her see what's happening in dreams. She can also read the person's subconscious while she is them in the dream. And she can manipulate what they do in that dream. Then she can snap out of being the dreamer and become her own person in the dream. And when that happens, she can communicate with the people in the dream.
And that's only 10%. So yeah, we'll wager much more dangerous indeed. Irids, you get a point of correct here. But let's finally get into what we'll call it the big theories, because I have a feeling this is going to be a conversation we're going to go over for the next years until we wait for book 4. What on earth could be the other 90%?
I think at the very least, Violet will hone her ability to communicate in dreams, and this will be central to how she and Zaden interact while they're apart the next book. Think Crescent City 2, but I won't say any more for sake of spoilers.
I think no matter what, we're getting dream sex next book, and I'm so ready! Another way I think Violet might be able to hone her signet is when Zaden says, quote, "You don't read them, you walk straight into them when unconscious." Right now, she only walks into them when she's unconscious and therefore not meaning to. But what if when she hones it and she is meaning to and conscious, she could literally walk down the halls of Ryerson House and see dream after dream after dream and meddle with them. But with this meddling, she would be able to literally change a person's subconscious thoughts through her own interference. That's where I see this and be like, oh shit, this is terrifying.
And potentially she can communicate with them in their own dreams without them knowing that it's actually Violet consciously doing this.
Woo!
I think that where she can consciously dream walk while she is awake is definitely going to happen. Yep. But let's get into the very popular theory that Violet is not just a dream walker. She's actually a mind walker, where she has the ability to walk into people's minds when they're awake and not just asleep. Right now, it seems like her signet is dream walking, but that could only be because she's untrained, and walking into dreams when people are unconscious and don't have their shields up is the easiest thing to do. The biggest piece of evidence for this is from Iron Flame's throne scene. When Violet kind of walks into Zaden's mind and it seems to take him off guard, which we've referenced endlessly over the past year, as Nicole especially was convinced Violet was an intrinsic. Which, pause, because in case you did not listen to our Romantasy BookCon Los Angeles live show, I took it to the audience to see if they think Nicole should win this bet, with Violet's dreamwalking counting as what Nicole interpreted as intrinsic. The resounding answer was yes. So there you go, audience. You win that bet, Nicole.
And in case you're wondering what bet that is, this upcoming Saturday on our final Onyx Storm live Q&A, Lexi, I'm going to have you read a sex scene on that Q&A that the Dragon Riders and Iron Squad are going to be picking this week.
Then there are multiple hints in Onyx Storm that Violet and Zaden's bond goes deeper than their dragon mate bond. And it's not just Zaden's signet seeming to grow stronger. The way they talk about sharing memories and such definitely feels like an Easter egg for something bigger. Violet mind walking without realizing it could be that answer. Although I will say Zaden was able to do this with her back and forth wing, so perhaps this is more of a reflection of them being like soulmates, as we've been talking about the mating theory lately.
I guess my big question here with the mind walking is, what's the difference between mind walking and being a full intrinsic? Because they seem so similar, and yet it doesn't seem... I'm thinking about it from a storytelling choice. Why would it be a different name when there's already something that we have under that name in this world? You know what I mean?
So I do think that could be what it is. It is a full intrinsic, but it's just manifesting in a very different way than it typically would.
Oh, I hope that's the case. I have added to our list of Rebecca Yarros questions. The throne scene, was that Zaden or Violet's power? So we'll see if she answers that. Spring has sprung and summer is on the way. And with warmer weather, I know exactly what my go-to hydration solution is going to be. Element.
If you're familiar with us at Fantasy Fangirls, this is episode 10 after all, so I'm assuming you know we love Element. Not only does it help you hydrate, but every sip really does feel like a treat. Element is a zero-sugar electrolyte drink mix and sparkling electrolyte water born from the growing body of research revealing that optimal health outcomes occur at sodium levels 2 to 3 times government recommendations. Each stick pack delivers a meaningful dose of electrolytes, free of sugar, artificial colors, and other dodgy ingredients.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you literally see my water bottle right now. It is filled with grapefruit sparkling element. One of my favorite flavors ever. I was literally telling Lexi it's been a minute since I've had this flavor, and I was like, oh, it's just like such a little treat. This one, and of course, mango chili. I will never shut up about mango chili. It's so good.
Right now, Element is offering a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packets free with any Element order. This is a great way to try 8 flavors or share Element with a friend. Get yours at drinklmnt.com/FFG. This deal is only available through our link. You must go to drinklmnt.com/FFG.
Let's throw out some other rapid fire 90% theories. There's this line from Marin, quote, "That used to be my worst nightmare, actually." And then Violet repeats in italics, "worst nightmare." So does she actually walk into people's worst nightmares, not just their dreams? But then that goes back to why she would have manifested it in this way when she wanted to be just near Andarna. And it does make me wonder, if she's walking into people's worst nightmares, that would really tie her to Varish and his signet of seeing people's worst fears or weaknesses, excuse me. And that could really fuck Violet's mind up. Like, that would be a really hard pill to swallow. I don't see it being other people's worst nightmares. I say this, and yet being able to see other people's worst nightmares could be extremely helpful against...
Especially being able to meddle in them, too.
Yeah, well, exactly.
She'd probably just want to go and save everybody.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, I'm trying to think about this as like, okay, a Theophony would be a great example. She would manifest the signet and screw everyone up. But we know from Rebecca Yarros that the Taylor Swift song that best describes Violet in the beginning of book 4 is "Look What You've Made Me Do," which one of the repeating lines from that song is, quote, "I'll be the actress starring in your bad dreams," which just... yeah, so good. So, theory, what if she sneaks into the camp that Halden is leading at the border? He's about to march into Tyrrendor. This is the Caldera-Tyrrendor border. And she walks into his worst nightmare and meddles in it. And then the next day she gets to play out that nightmare in real life, terrifying the shit out of him and scaring him off. That's how you get revenge on a shitty ex.
For this next theory, I know I've gone over it quite a bit already, so I won't go too deep now, but it's the possibility that there is some kind of precognition associated with her dreams, with all of the foreshadowing that all of these dreams are doing.
So the more and more we've deep dove in these dreams and you've brought this up, I really could see it this way. Now, we know dreams in literature tend to lean more towards foreshadowing of some kind, but you make a really good point. But here's where I want to expand on this theory just a little bit. I don't think Violet is the one starting these precognition dreams. Berwin is. Berwin, who we believe is a super powerful dreamwalker, is the one kicking off the premonition dream. He's manipulating circumstances so that the dreamer, Zaden, is put into a setting so that Zaden does what Berwin wants him to. Pull from the source, worry more and more about Violet and Sigale's safety, etc. Basically, Berwin is tweaking, I'm going back to the subconscious thing. Berwin is tweaking Zaden's subconscious so that he ends up falling into the exact situation that he's dreaming about later this book. When Violet hones this signet, she might be able to literally kick people's dreams off and then have them go through a set of circumstances that she determines. So I'm going back to the Halden example. Let's say she kicks off a dream for Halden where he loses the battle against Tyrrendor over and over and over again and has to retreat home. Eventually, that would screw with his subconscious so much where he starts to see that as one of the only outcomes. I think this is brilliant!
I did not think of it in that way. I love that so much because I was just about to say a lot of these theories that we're throwing around have us asking ourselves, does her signet influence what happens in the dream? Exactly what you're saying here about how she uses the subconscious to kind of dictate how it happens. Or does her signet simply allow her to walk into the dream already happening? I think that is how it is right now. Again, going back to Marin's, that was definitely the dream for Marin. But again, her family was burning, and then soon afterward, her family was burning. So I don't see Violet having had something necessarily to do with that. I think that might just be a little bit more of dream symbolism, like you were saying there, about it being foreshadowing.
Well, I think the reason we had the Marin dream is so that we, the audience, know that this is bigger than just her and Zaden's bond. We needed to have that dream so that we knew that this works on anyone, not just Zaden. But I do think that Berwin is kicking off this reoccurring dream for Zaden to fuck with him. So going back to the premonition thing, it's not precog per se. It's more manipulating someone's subconscious so that they end up in a situation that you wanted them to end up in. So it's not precognition, but it's
chess subconscious.
It's chess subconsciousness. That's the signet title right there.
We've also seen several versions of the theory that Violet's second signet is like a chameleon and it can change. The general idea is that Violet can change her signet kind of like how Andarna's magic changes when she changes colors. Because Andarna is magic and there is so much unknown about her kind of dragon, this could extend to Violet's signet manifested from an Irrid too. This could also explain why the other Irrids are so mad at Andarna for gifting Violet the powers that she did. It's so dangerous because the possibilities are endless and they don't want their kind of magic gifted to a human. During our Denver interview with Rebecca, she was saying how we really have no idea the possibilities of what the intrinsic signet can or can't do because anyone who has manifested it is killed right away, except Zaden. Rebecca went on to say that there is probably only one person alive who can train Violet with her second signet, which makes us automatically think this one person must be Zaden, right? He is the only other intrinsic alive who can train her. Again, that we know of. He's even guiding her right now about her ability as he helps Violet recognize what her second signet is. But as we talk about all the possibilities within dreamwalking, like communicating with others in dream, being a chess player with their subconscious, meddling, and all of that, someone else comes to mind, who we are definitely assuming is a dreamwalker himself, Berwin the Sage. He continually takes the lead in Zaden's dreams, shows a future situation we will see mostly play out, and it seems like he's consciously appealing to Zaden to the point where it's not just dreams. There's a line in chapter 56's Zaden Dream when Berwin calls her a dreamwalker, and then Violet thinks, quote, Zaden's nightmares are eerily on point.
There's also that line that he says, you're a quick learner, which sounds very mentor-mentee talk, right? So I definitely could see him being I'm going to call it a villain mentor. Like that's like...
Well, like what Theophony is trying to be for her, but with the lightning wielding.
Exactly, yes.
I like that the two of them, it's almost like they've both been pitting against each other to try to get her for her different signets.
Oh my God, that's so good.
So if Berwin is also a dreamwalker, again, that is not absolutely confirmed on the page, but we're all pretty much convinced that it is the case, could he actually be the only person to train Violet? There is also speculation in the fandom that this person Rebecca hinted at is Dane. He is a controllable type of intrinsic who can read memories when he touches someone's face with two hands. Actually, it's not with two hands. I just like saying that at this point. And we can't forget Sloane's comment, quote, someone like you shouldn't have this much power. That has stripped the whole fandom up.
I cannot wait to talk about Eyes Hear Dane Atos next episode, but that is not right now. I want to look at this from a storytelling aspect. I think it's either going to be Zaden. He'll step back into that mentorship role, but only in dreams. So then there's that extra obstacle. Rebecca loves having Zaden be that mentor to Violet, but always with an obstacle. For this year, it was Professor Ryerson, but he was in that professorship role, so they couldn't be together. Back in Fourth Wing, it was that he hated her, and that it was, all of the enemies to lovers stuff. And here it would be that he literally can't be with her. They can only do practice in their dreams. So then I think going back to who's going to kick off dreams, I think Violet's going to start kicking off dreams with Zaden, and Berwin won't be the third wheel in the dreams that they'll be having.
I really hope so, especially if there's dream sex.
Berwin just sitting in the corner with Now, all of that aside, though, I could also see Dane from a storytelling aspect. He has this character arc that has honestly floored us all, especially us here at Fantasy Fangirls who coined GFDD, and yet now it stands for Golly Freaking Daddy Dane. It would provide Violet and Dane this full circle moment with them. She's trusting him. He's having to keep a deadly secret for her. And it would just, I just think it would be such beautiful parallelism from book one.
I really don't know if Dane is powerful enough, if he could be the only person. I like the idea that it's Berwin, because it would be a huge issue for her to not want to train with a fucking sage, and at the same time, she needs to know about this second signet of hers. And so there would almost be like that kind of push and pull, talk about an obstacle right there.
I think about it like, I know we reference this a lot, especially in Onyx Storm, but I think about it like Harry's moments with Voldemort when he sees through Voldemort's eyes. He doesn't like this connection between the two of them, but he starts to rely on it because it tells him what the enemy is doing. Yep. And so I could see it be that kind of like, God, I want this, but also I don't type of internal struggle, which is just always delicious on the page.
Ooh, yes. All of this to say, after thinking more and more about it, I'm really excited about the second signet of Violet's because there are so many possibilities and directions that it can go. Case in point, we readers may know what her second signet is now, but we're still full of theories and ideas of what else this means for Violet. Again, we only know 10%. To be honest, Nicole and I dismissed the idea that her second signet could be dreamwalking in the lead up to Onyx Storm. For like a year, we dismissed it. We were so hung up on the focus of Terran and Andarna and the Iron Flame dreams, among a few other things. And when this was initially revealed, we were like, okay. Rebecca was kind of right when she said Violet's second signet would be underwhelming, as she tried to prepare everybody for it in a previous interview. However, after processing it a little and digging into how Violet can meddle and communicate within dreams, and then what Rebecca told us during the interview, I really embrace this and I'm all in. It's totally different than her lightning wielding. It is fitting for a gift from Andarna, where it is both seemingly innocent, but actually not at all. And again, the possibilities are endless.
Yes. And then also, I remember Rebecca said this, I can't remember which interview it was, but Violet and Zaden are going to be separated for at least a part of next book. We don't know if it's the full book or not. She needs them to still be able to communicate somehow. And she has mentioned that this is that opportunity for these two main characters to still be able to communicate. And I'm just like, oh my God. And that's why I go back again, where Zaden in real life is going to be that ASIM full on the ice Venom, but in dreams he's still going to be that core Zaden. So it's, oh my God, I'm so excited. Like each time we learn about a second signet in this world, it's a conversation that is immediately cut short by a Venom attack. So buckle up, buttercups. A horde of Wyvern approaches from the east, flying in under cover of the storm. Just like they've done before, there are a few dozen Wyvern. Oh no! How interesting that less than 24 hours after Violet and co. arrive in Arashia, Theophony and co. swoop in. I'm assuming this is Panchek who ratted them out and gave them the, hey, you're in the clear. But he's more working with Berwyn, and Berwyn's not here.
Not necessarily. It was Theophony who led the attack on Seneva, and we can assume it was Panchek who gave her that information. Same with Quest Squad, Grady's version with Inca. Again, we never actually get any confirmation that he is indeed the one who was the traitor with these events, so we are assuming. I definitely don't think it's a coincidence that Panchek just arrived in Arashia, and now there is an attack on Arashia. I'm guessing that when Panchek arrived, he confirmed that the wards are super weak and an attack on Arashia is possible. By the way, what the fuck does Panchek's dragon have to say about all of this? Panchek can't possibly be hiding this from his dragon. Does that mean he actually is Venom and therefore able to control his dragon?
Possibly. I don't think his dragon has a whole lot to say on it now because his dragon is assumed quite dead, so fuck you, Panchek. But I guess you're right. I guess he has gone Venom because that would be a huge no-no.
Right? Unless his dragon is somehow in on it with him. I mean, we do know that Bade hid Jack being Venom for so long, but we also don't know if he was controlling Bade.
We don't know if he was controlling Bade, which I'm assuming he was. But also, Panchek's green dragon and Panchek have been together a hell of a lot longer than Bade and Jack. So maybe they have a lot more of a tie that he's okay with things being the way that
they made the decision together to fuck the Empyrean and everything and go help the Venom. I don't know, just something to think about.
That's definitely something to think about. Whatever happened, it's all hands on deck. Because the Wyvern, who we know are the speedy green fire Wyvern, are coming in hot, outflying the dragon / the dragon riders who are currently on patrol.
Here at Ryerson House, they can feel the wards aren't completely gone. But as Zaden says, that's not saying much because the wardstone is in their backyard. Remember that these Arashia wards can stop Wyvern, but they've been weakening faster than anyone expected these past few months. So now the Wyvern are 10 minutes away from Arashia, which is the closest they've ever gotten during their tests. There is estimated to be a few dozen Wyvern, but it's hard to tell with the weather clouding vision. And while this horde of Wyvern is a lot, no Venom are spotted among them. Brennan hypothesizes, and we'll find out that it is correct, that the Venom are only sending in small waves of Wyvern right now to test the barriers of the wards.
And I bet you anything this is Theophony creating the storm for them to fly into. Yep.
Bottom line, the Arashia wards are so weak now that they're basically ineffective, and the Venom are double checking this before they seize the opportunity to finally attack. There are a few riders here in residence. The 6 on patrol won't arrive to Arashia before the battle begins, like Nicole mentioned, and the 2 generals of the Tyrrendor army, Suri and Ulysses, who are members of the Arashian Assembly we met in Iron Flame, they're elsewhere in the province. But there's no time to dwell on these unfortunate circumstances. Battle plans quickly form and orders are given. Infantry goes to their posts and take out Wyvern that the dragons and riders send to the ground. Felix is to keep the first years safe, especially Arik, who is the only decent royal heir to Navarre, and we kind of want to keep him safe. I wonder if Zaden thinks the Venom want to specifically target Arik, whether because of his bloodline or because Zaden knows he's a precog from reading his mind, and he's like, the Venom will definitely want Arik. The officers, who I believe are the 10 active riders, will be stationed 2 to 5 miles east, where this horde of Wyvern is coming from, so they'll be the first line of defense. Zaden will be with them for a total of 11 riders. The 15 retired riders will be split, half to guard the wardstone, half throughout the city to help civilians flee to caves. Third years who volunteer to fight will be at the east gate to the city, commanded by Dane. Second years, again, only those who are willing, which is everybody, will be at the north gate, led by Ree. More specifically, the Flyers and Griffins will be on top of the wall. Violet and Ree will hover at 100 feet, and anything above that is theirs. Sawyer and Riddick will cover the 100 feet below.
While everyone is running to get to their positions, Arik grabs Violet and tells her, "You must protect the Temple of Dune." Okay, sure, Arik. She's protecting the whole city, so naturally that would include the temple. Nope, as Arik says, the temple is beyond the walls of Arashia. She would have to abandon her orders at the north gate and instead fly off to go to the temple to protect it. During the strategy meeting, Arik had a moment where he paused, brows furrowing. I'm going to start calling this like, "That's so Arik," or something like that. Side note, I remember this is when you and I looked at each other and we were like, holy shit, he's a motherfucking precog. And it was one of the most satisfying moments. While not completely a That's So Raven where his mind like goes off to the side, I guarantee you this is where he saw the future and how they will need to keep the temple alive and well for multiple reasons. Number 1, the high priestess of this temple will later give Arik, who then gives to Violet, a dagger made of the temple stone itself, which Violet will use to kill Theophony once and for all. Number 2, by saving the temple this go round, the high priestess will tell Zaden she owes him a favor. He will call in said favor to go get Mawied at the end of this book, which is Zaden's way of Violet saving Tyrrendor. And number 3, this saving Tyrrendor might go beyond killing Theophony and getting them the favor from the high priestess, because as Arik says, quote, "It's how you save Tyrrendor." Let's go into some butterfly effect stuff here, shall we? Violet saves the temple in this battle, which will later lead to her killing Theophony with a piece of this temple. But what else happens in that battle? Zaden pulls and goes ASUM, which leads to Violet and Zaden getting married and her becoming the Duchess of Arashia and Tyrrendor. So what if something happens next book that will lead to her full-blown saving Tyrrendor mode? And that's all because of this butterfly effect. God, it's brilliant.
There's also the possibility that Leoan wouldn't have stepped in to light the wardstone if Violet and Andarna weren't in danger at this temple. Violet will disobey orders and protect the temple attendants along with Andarna, which leads Theophony and the Venom to them. And that's when Leoan comes in to save the day. Felix will later say that Violet leaving her post and causing Zaden and Ree to leave theirs too would have been the reason they lost this battle if the Irrid hadn't shown up. So this precog moment might have been Arik knowing Violet needed to be at the temple, which would result in Leoan feeling inclined to light the wardstone and ward most of Tyrrendor. This episode is sponsored by Haya Health. If you're a parent of a little one like me, we know the struggle of getting our kids to take their daily vitamins and make it actually fun, which is why Haya has been a game changer for this.
Typical children's vitamins are basically candy in disguise, filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar, unhealthy chemicals, and other gummy junk growing kids shouldn't eat. That's why Haya was created, the pediatrician-approved superpower chewable vitamin. While most children's vitamins are filled with 5 grams of sugar and can contribute to a variety of health issues, Haya is made with 0 sugar, yet it tastes great and is perfect for picky eaters.
Yes, so Haya is this bright yellow container, and I've actually had to hide it from my children because they get so excited to take their vitamins and they can only, have one a day. And they love to pick out the color. They eat eat it right away. They always ask for more. They absolutely love their Haya vitamins, and it makes me, as a mom, so happy. We also recommend checking out their new Kids Probiotic and Nighttime Essentials.
We've worked out a special deal with Haya for their best-selling children's vitamins. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hayahealth.com/FFG. This deal is not available on their regular website. Go to HIYAHEALTH.com/FFG and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. While Violet might dismiss Aric's orders for now, someone else listens to what he's saying. Someone who has no problem saying fuck you to orders. As Violet and Taryn fly overhead, they will see a determined Andarna holding down the Dune fort. After all, the prince said to protect the temple. And Andarna uses the excuse that she was ordered by a prince and princes do not make suggestions. But then Andarna follows it up with, quote, "Am I not everything you wanted me to be? Am I not as fierce and courageous as he is? Is this not what I'm supposed to do? Sharpen my claws on the scales of the enemy?" Ah, so that's where this is coming from. And Andarna always has been iffy with following orders and tends to lean towards going into battle and saving Violet's ass once or twice. But here we're seeing just how much of a lifeline this is to Andarna as well. She was rejected by the peaceful Irids. Fine, that's cool, whatever, Irids. She's a fearsome dragon like Taryn. As far as going through her grief, this is definitely a step beyond retreating and not speaking. She's just now flinging herself into the other aspects of specifically the Navarian dragon.
Battle positions, people. Violet and Taryn take flight to head toward the north gate where they're supposed to be. The city of Arashia is preparing for the attack, with temple attendants darting to their sanctuaries. Well, except those who serve Zanal. They're just drinking because I guess they've accepted whatever hand the god of luck is dealing them. Civilians are scurrying from house to house. Infantry are racing through the streets to get into their positions. It is dark and cloudy outside, making it hard for Violet and Co. to see in the skies. So she uses her conduit to help focus her power and light up the night sky, which, this illumination shows a sea of gray-winged wyvern at different altitudes with no formation. Interesting, because at Bisgayeth, the horde of wyvern were in formation. It would seem they've learned their lesson, and by not being in formation, the wyvern are making it harder for Violet to take them out. So now she has to pick them off one by one or in small groups. This probably means that the attackers know Violet is here, which is further evidence that someone inside is spilling information to the Venom to give them an advantage. Violet does some impressive wielding against this horde of wyvern, but it causes her blisters.
Seeing what they're up against, it's time for orders. Ree tells Fjerg to tell Taryn and Violet that they are to stay close to the walls of the city, which makes sense for protecting civilians, but not so much for Violet, who might be getting better at directing her strikes, but she's definitely not confident enough to be this close to civilians and not risk pewing one of them.
I think this goes to show how much others expect of Violet, and how she has to know her own limitations as an inexperienced lightning wielder. Ree assumes that she is this good because Violet kind of has to be, except she's not, and she knows it, and this is nothing against our girl, it's just her having to work with what she is capable of.
So, Violet and Taryn go rogue. They launch for the field to be the first line of defense. And even though they did tell Ree to stay back, she instead follows them into the darkness. After all, the second year's second squads have all agreed to protect Violet. Quickly after leaving the protection of the wards, Taryn and Violet hit a fucking wall of wyvern. Taryn using the blackness of his scales to blend into the night and pull a surprise attack on the horde. Claw and teeth collide with scales, and all Violet can do is trust Taryn as he takes these bitches down. Taryn bites into the wyvern's barbed tail and rolls through the sky. Fun note from our content researcher here, quote, "The way this is described reminds me of the death roll that alligators or crocodiles do when they kill their prey." Never change, Brooke. Never change. What I think about is when you tuck in tight and like roll down a hill. I used to do this when I was a kid. I definitely still do this as an adult and just hate it a lot more when I stand up, because then you can't stand up for a minute because you don't know which way is the sky and which way is the ground. Anyway, Violet feels similarly. After bone snaps in the sky, indicating that the wyvern's neck is broken and it's dead, Violet tells Taryn, "Never fucking again. I don't know. I think this sounds like a fun roller coaster for Empyrean world someday.
In the midst of this Wyvern attack, we learn that the bodies of the fallen Wyvern have fallen to the north gate walls and caused destruction. This is one of the things Felix will later chastise Violet about for her recklessness. And while I'm almost always on your side, Felix, I'm a little confused how this destruction is Violet's fault for disobeying orders.
I guess it's like if she was there, she would have been able to take out the Wyvern before it flew into the side of the wall.
That's true. Yeah. It was the positioning of like making sure that it wouldn't have gotten into the walls. But I don't know. I don't really see that being a high priority when just taking out Wyvern is the top priority.
Exactly. I think you're so right when you said earlier that if she hadn't been near the temple to save Andarna, Leoan wouldn't have fired the Wardstone. So if anything, Felix, I think she saved the entirety of Tyrrendor. But we have a quick ice watch during this battle sequence. Violet reaches out for Zaden and is met with a wall of onyx ice. This is the first time onyx ice wall is mentioned, and it's not going to be the last. Yikes! Then later, ice pierces through Violet's shields, and then she realizes it's Zaden. Also, double yikes. I love that it's ice pierces through, and then she almost has to do a mind double take and realize, oh, never mind, it's Zaden. What the hell is happening on his end of the field that's making him go full ice wall onyx?
I think he's created this wall of ice to protect himself. It's his way of staying locked in and under control when he is beyond the wards and wanting to pull from the source. But he's preventing himself from doing so by shielding himself from the pull as much as he can. I also annotated that when Taryn says Sigale is coping, how upset he must be that his mate has a rider who has to do something like this to literally shield from himself. I also will say I love the descriptions of Zaden and Violet's complementing elements. A little bit later, when she's really like burning up from the fire within her, Zaden's ice like helps her and like cools her down. I just love how complementary they are. Zaden is ice, Violet is fire, he is shadows, she is lightning.
Yes. 4 Wyvern are flying close to the ground, avoiding attention. But uh-oh, they are heading straight for Dune's temple. Oh no!
What's more, Andarna is standing in front of the temple because the prince said to protect it. Andarna, you're supposed to be safely at the Wardstone. Once again, defying orders for reasons Nicole said earlier, but it's more proof that Violet is not weaponizing Andarna like the Irids have accused her of. Andarna goes against her rider's orders and puts herself in the thick of the fighting because she wants to. It really makes me think that even if Andarna did stay with the Irids, she would not accept their peaceful lifestyle. She has too much feistiness and ferocity within herself to really be a protector for people just like Violet. To save Andarna and civilians, Taryn doesn't hesitate and dives straight toward the fast approaching low-flying Wyvern. Violet again demonstrates just how much she's learning about her lightning wielding. As she gathers power, condenses it, and summons more until she is, quote, light and heat and energy itself. You know, I know we all call her signet lightning wielding, but we know it's actually power wielding that most comfortably takes the form of lightning. It's moments like this where it's like, yes, girl, be the power! She spools power like thread. How fucking cool is that? Then strikes and with her fingers splits the bolt in 2 to blast 2 of the 4 Wyvern. Huzzah! But what's this? There's 2 Wyvern left, and on one of them rides a silver-haired rider. Theophony! Evil villain bestie, you're here! Taryn drops onto the nearest Wyvern and kills it. But he takes a wing spur in the leg. The spur is half Violet size and embedded in his thigh. Ouch. Taryn skids to a halt in the field, while Fieric and Ree keep going after the one remaining Wyvern, which Theophony is riding. But Violet insists for Andarna to tell Fieric not to chase after Theophony. This maven is far too powerful, and Ree would be killed if she went up against Theophony on her own.
I am just going to point this out once, and that this is now the second time in this book in battle that Taryn is injured, and that very well could be foreshadowing for his eventual demise in book 4. I'm just saying, but today is not that day. Rig and Fieric to the rescue. Seeing Taryn and Violet take to the ground, and after the instruction not to chase Theophony, they follow after them. And after a quick inspection, Ree holds her hands up, and poof! Taryn roars, but the spur is now safely out of Taryn's leg and instead summoned right in front of Rhiannon. Go, Ree! One of the reasons we love Rebecca Yarros' writing style is because of the richness of these secondary characters. While Violet has been training her signet, Ree has been honing her own, doing her own training montages, if you will. And huzzah! This is the biggest thing she's ever retrieved ever. This is one hell of a useful signet. Oh my god. But there's no time to waste. We might be grounded for now, but there's no way Theophony will give up this easy when she's dead set on getting Violet.
At this Temple of Dune, dozens of white-haired attendants and their high priestess wait at the top of the steps behind Andarna. Violet urges them to go inside because some shelter is better than no shelter during this attack, right? But as the high priestess says, they don't want to burn inside. Quote, either Dune protects us or we meet Malak as her worthy servants. In other words, nowhere is safe, so might as well be out here. Which absolutely makes sense for attendants of Dune, the goddess of strength and war. They don't shy away from a fight. Dune is the only one of two deities who requires a lifetime of dedication from their attendants. Because war changes the soul irrevocably. Close enough.
Close enough.
Whether that means these attendants are familiar with war or trained at all, I'm not sure. I'm kind of leaning no in the formal sense, and more so that these attendants have deep-rooted appreciation for strength and bravery in the face of war, and here they are following through.
Interesting, because maybe it's because we just deep dived Silver Flames, but I 1000% believe that they trained in the art of the fight and warfare. But it also maybe depends on, like, do they get powers when they dedicate themselves? But we'll get to that more in a moment.
In this chaos, the High Priestess has a very important question for Violet. Do you use lye and the juice of the manwasa flower on your hair as we do? It is actually a pretty relevant question as far as the High Priestess is concerned, even if it seems really random, because there are those truly dedicated to Dune, or in Violet's case, touched by Dune, because she had only a partial dedication, and their hair turns silver. There is something part of the process of the dedication that makes their hair this way. We don't know any more than that, so all I can guess is that there is some greater power at work, like the goddess's magic. That's at least how it is in Umbriel. However, here in Tyrrendor, and I assume the rest of the continent, these same great powers are not at work when someone is dedicated.
I view this, and this is the weirdest analogy, it's like you're using a web browser for a certain app versus downloading the app straight to your computer. Like, the full download will be more powerful because there's that direct connection between your computer brain and the app versus there's that middle barrier. Like, if there's the app, there's the web browser, and then it's the computer. Computer people, please don't come at me. I don't know if that's right, but that's how I understand it.
Hair here is described as white, not silver, and it is not natural, and they dye their hair white, their version of silver, as a symbolic representation of being dedicated to Dune, which means that when someone dedicates themselves to Dune here on the continent, the process is not the same as on Umbriel. I'll even venture so far to say the attendants here on the continent are not truly touched by Dune. However, there is some confusion, because according to Major Royally's Guide to Appeasing the Gods, quote, becoming high priest or priestess is the closest most of us will get to touching the power of the gods. The rest are riders. This makes it seem like there is power through this dedication that would be done on the continent, dyed white hair or not. And what kind of power is there? Does Dune channel into them so they have, like, lesser magic? I won't go so far to say, like, signets or gifts like the Flyers have, but something? Are they given strength and health, like what Papa Sorengale was trying to fix Violet with her chronic illness?
I love that. Like, I imagine each of the dedication processes gives you the power that is associated with the god. So Dune is strength and war. I absolutely see it being strength. Like, burning pewter is the best thing that I can get closest to from Mistborn. When you burn pewter, you become extra powerful in that moment. So it's almost like that's their quote-unquote lesser magic. I won't even try to guess what Zanal or Loisum would do, but that's for a different day. Now, these priestesses do mention, after Violet's like, I don't dye my hair, I don't know what you're talking about, they say how Violet has journeyed far to come to their aid. So I'm assuming they think that she's from Umbriel.
Which makes me think they believe Violet might have powers they don't, being dedicated from Umbriel with true silver hair, even if it is partial. After all, the High Priestess says that Dune wouldn't come here and take up arms because she sent Violet.
Okay. You know how Violet is always like, she's always saying, like, I need to be faster. Like, I'm really quick. I'm really fast with daggers. I'm really, like, fat. And, like, she's really precise with daggers. What if that's part of Dune's partial power that is being channeled into her?
Maybe.
I love the idea that it's just her being really good at it on her own. So honestly, I'm happy either way. But, like, what if some of her, I'll say, easier to tap into lesser magic? Well, no, because even that, most of those started after she started channeling with Taryn and Andarna. So really, the only I'm going to say quote unquote power, extra boost that she had prior to that. It's mentioned in chapter 1 of Fourth Wing how she's extra quick with daggers. She says, I'm quick, lightning quick. So it could be that from Dune.
It very well could be. Also, it makes me wonder what she might be capable of as a writer who is touched by a god. I'm willing to bet that most temple attendants are not writers, but there is something with high priest or priestesses that they do get some kind of power. Again, but we don't know what the difference is between here on the continent and on Umbriel, but we know that there is definitely something different because there is the true silver hair and this just dyed white hair. I don't think we're supposed to have the answers yet, but differences between these attendants on the continent and on Umbriel are really good to keep in mind. Also, fun fact, lye most accurately refers to sodium hydroxide, and it's traditionally been used as a major ingredient in soap making, among being an ingredient in many other products like household cleaning solutions, and it is even used to cure food.
But, like many conversations in this stretch of chapters, we have no time for this because in walks our favorite Venom bestie, Theophony, who gets quite the welcome from her fellow/ex-fellow priestesses. They scream, heretic, at her and scream how she's not welcome here. Oh, how right they are.
Real quick, in case you need the definition of heretic, a heretic is someone who holds beliefs or opinions that are contrary to the established beliefs of a particular religion, which, checks out with Theophony, a Dune high priestess turned Venom.
So this reaction makes me wonder, how much do the Dune attendant / the high priestess know about what happens to priestesses who go Venom like Theophony? Is Theophony I'll call it a cautionary tale on Navarre, on the continent? I personally highly doubt it, especially because we assume Theophony was from Umbriel. I don't think that's actually an assumption. I think that's pretty much fact now. And it does seem like the islands and the continent aren't really doing a whole lot of talking to each other.
Well, we actually don't technically know that Theophony is from Umbriel because she might have been dedicated, like truly dedicated here on the continent before it was outlawed.
That's true.
While I agree with you that the high priestesses in Umbriel are not talking to the priestesses here on the continent, the note that this Arashia high priestess gives to Arik will be interesting because it seems like she does understand what's going on with Violet. Quote, I will pray to her, meaning Dune, that she, Violet, need not use it, the double dagger, to avoid reacquainting herself with the other who curries her favor, Theophony. Her path is still not set. I'm guessing she only knows Violet's path is not set because of the partial hair and not because the high priestess from Umbriel talked to her.
I agree completely. A quick theory while we're chatting about all this. What if Theophony is the reason behind why the continent stopped full dedications?
Yes.
Maybe when you do an Umbriel dedication, you get more power, an Umbriel type dedication, how they did it on the continent many years ago. You do get that extra magical element, and they didn't want that given to younglings is the word I'm going to use. They didn't want that given to younglings, so that's why they stopped. And maybe they saw how it was affecting people like Theophony.
But this is the moment that Violet pieces together exactly who Theophony is, or who she used to be. Faded forehead tattoo that is indecipherable. It's got to be the emblem of Dune, because the Umbriel and Arashia Dune high priestesses also have a forehead tattoo. Silver hair just like Violet's, same as the Umbriel attendants, and what these Arashia attendants strive for with their dyed white hair. This Arashia high priestess is yelling that Theophony is a heretic and not welcome at Dune's temple. Shout out to this high priestess drawing a sword to a maven, even if her arms are trembling. I think Dune would be proud. Absolutely. Theophony is quite literally not welcome at this temple. According to Major Royalty's Guide to Appeasing the Gods, quote, there is no goddess more wrathful than Dune. Entering her temple will slice the soul from any attendant who has shunned her grace. Theophony has clearly shunned Dune in favor of becoming a Venom, so therefore she is cursed from entering her temple, which is a very important bit of info for later.
A quick break to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Wayfair. I am right now in the process of making a cozy chair for my office, little reading nook corner, while also wanting to replace this chair because this thing, the padding, it don't do what I need it to do anymore. So naturally, of course, I am looking at Wayfair. Wayfair is my go-to place while I work to build out my dream home. Whether you're making a little update like I am or doing a full renovation, Wayfair has stylish and quality home improvements for every budget.
Looking in my office, everything is from Wayfair. My desk is from Wayfair. My bookshelves are from Wayfair. Our bedroom set is from Wayfair. We just got a beautiful 3-panel mountain wall decor. Wayfair as well. I am also putting together a reading nook. You can bet that I'm getting my green velvet chair from Wayfair.
There is something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your spring home goals with endless inspiration for every space and every budget, whether you need a light refresh or an organizational overhaul. And best of all, they offer free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff. They'll even help you set it up.
Shop the best selection of home improvement online. Get renovating with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's Wayfair.com, Wayfair. Every style, every home.
Theophony may not be able to cross the stone of the temple, but her 2 Venin minions can. These 2 Venin are wearing red robes. There's a new color for us. We have not seen red robes yet. And they start walking towards the temple. But no, our teenage dragon flies over and blasts a trail of fire at Theophony. Die, Theophony, die! But wait, she didn't die, which leaves Theophony in awe of the closeness of the Irid and Andarna outraged. I love the moment in the audiobook where Rebecca Soler goes, "Why?" as Andarna. It's so good. We don't know if this is because Theophony is immune to the Irid dragon fire because she's a maven, or if it's because Andarna is a different color than she was when she roasted the Dark Wielder last book. We currently don't know what color she is choosing to be right now, but I'm assuming it's not her standard black because that's what color she was when she roasted the Venin last book. Because, remember, magic feels different when she changes color. And then that's never mentioned outside the prologue ever again.
I actually think that she is black here because she is very frequently her black color. So that's like her standard. I think that there's several possibilities for why this wasn't possible too. So this could be because Theophony was dedicated to Dune. High priestesses do have quite a bit of power that we don't know anything else about, like we've been saying, only second to writers, before turning Venin. So there could be something with that. I also wonder if it's because Andarna isn't fully grown, because as Theophony is saying how marvelous Andarna is and taunting her about if trying to burn Theophony made her feel better, we get a very interesting situation. Quote, Theophony's gaze rises to the sky behind me, and she backs away, her eyes widening. Leave them and go! She then turns and runs away, demanding the other 2 Venin go with her. Then one of them takes a step and vanishes, just like Garrick. How many distance-wielding Venin are there? This is the 3rd Venin we've seen do this. Berwyn, Theophony, and this guy. Again, I don't know if it's the actual signet, but I think it might be something to do with just the Venin and up-leveling. But anyway, what the hell frightened Theophony so much that they just fled a fight they were owning seconds ago? She must have seen or maybe even felt Leoan in the sky. And since the wards aren't properly up quite yet, I bet he was on his way to the wardstone in this moment. And Theophony either knew the wards were about to go up and they had to get out of there before their powers were dampened and the Wyvern came crashing down, or fully grown Irids like Leoan are able to roast even a maven. Or maybe it's both possibilities. Because Theophony is fascinated by Andarna and wants her, but then she's terrified of another Irid. It doesn't really check out any other way.
Even though Theophony and her 2 minions are gone, there are still 4 Wyvern on approach for the temple, and they're coming in hot. Violet prepares to wield and strike them out of the sky, and bullseye! She hits the center Wyvern, who begins dropping out of the sky like a fireball. But wait, the other 3 are suddenly falling out of the sky too. One crashing to the ground about 60 feet away from Violet, one being knocked off its course by Tear barreling into it. And the other, who is roughly Fierg's size, is heading straight for Andarna, and it's not stopping, nor is she moving out of the way. Instead, she plants her feet, ready to stand strong against it. When, psych, Fierg swings her head, knocking Andarna out of the way of the Wyvern's path. But we're not out of the woods yet. The Wyvern crashes into a column, and pieces of it fly towards Violet, who is preparing to use lesser magic to wield it away. But then it just stops, with shadows holding it in place. Again, Violet, it is always you. Nice callback to Zaden's entrance in the beginning of this book. But hang on a moment. The only way for Wyvern to be falling out of the sky like that are if the wards were activated.
And the only way for the wards to activate is if we have an Irid breathe fire on the wardstone in addition to the other 6 breeds. And Andarna already breathed fire on the wardstone at Basgiath, so according to the magic of the wardstone, she's not able to do that for another. Which can only mean one thing. Leoan! Whether he only needed to breathe on the already partially activated wardstone to complete the process, or round up 6 dragons from the other breeds to do it all together. The point is, the words are up thanks to this Irid who came to the rescue. This means that most of Tyrrendor, including of course Arashia, is finally safe. But why did Leoan change his mind? He seems to be here on his own, and it turns out that he's been watching Andarna since his arrival. Not sure exactly when that was, but the point is no one noticed, not even dragons like Terran or Sigale, which is a big deal because dragons can sense one another's presence, except apparently Irids.
This is nice and all from Leoan, but back to that question of why. His kind seemed all at peace with letting them go off and die on their own, including Andarna. But Leoan was the most open-minded of the lot. The only thing that made him sway the other way back on the island was the fact that they aligned themselves with the Venin, aka Zaden. But something didn't quite sit right with Leoan with how they treated Andarna. She is, after all, someone in his direct family line. And just like that family tie is very important to Andarna, it also holds weight for Leoan. Because we're in Violet's POV during this, it's really easy to look at Leoan and see him taking Andarna away and see him being a bad guy of sorts, I'm going to say. But in reality, he's wanting to give his kin a second chance at what she was looking for in the first place. I am low-key looking forward to getting to know Leoan a little bit more next book because I feel like he's an Irid who's going to come in and aid the continent. Hopefully. Maybe. Leoan tells Andarna that her motives behind what she's become are honorable, aka you might be a credit to your riot, like Sigale is saying, but not in the peaceful ways they align themselves with. But the values at Andarna's core are aligned with the other Irids. It's just her ways and habits that need changing. And in order to do that, she needs to come with him. As he says, the others who judged her will, in time, learn to accept this decision to bring Andarna under his wing, literally. Quote, by then you will have learned enough to know your truth. It seems like there's a lot more behind this subtext, Leoan, but I can't even begin to guess what it is.
After all, he activated the ward stone so Andarna wouldn't die, and for the human she cares for to be safe from the Venin, which leaves Andarna free to come home with him and learn the peaceful ways of the Irids.
Before we get into this heartbreaking scene with Andarna deciding to leave, there is a huge alarm moment as Leoan shields Terran from Violet. Quote, there's a stronger shield than his blocking us. Leoan. It's oddly similar to the effects of the serum they dosed us with during RSC. I'm sorry. What the fuck? How? Why? What? I have a million questions. Number 1, is there an Irid ingredient in the serum? Which makes no sense because fucking how? Number 2, is this the same serum that they dosed the Venin with? We assumed it was, but if so, can further elements of Irids be part of the cure that can temporarily sate Venin?
I just take it as it's a similar effect to the muffling of the bond, and Violet is connecting a description with something she's already familiar with.
Lexi, you sweet summer child.
I'm just saying. I think it's the same thing as the wandering with the dreams and stuff like that.
I have another question because apparently Lexi's just letting this slide. Was Violet really cut off from Andarna last book? The times Violet was dosed with the serum, there were no mention of her reaching out to Andarna, only Terran. There is mention in the RSC Haddon Woods excursion that the connection is muffled between her and Andarna, but she doesn't bother trying to reach out for Andarna because she doesn't want to risk waking her up. The serum is described as, quote, the usually crystal clear connection is muffled, like someone has thrown a blanket over it. Panic clenches my heart as I realize the same is true for Andarna, though I don't risk waking her with questions.
Now this I could see not impacting Andarna with the serum and all of that, because she is an Irid and magic works differently with her, and she was asleep when Violet was drugged with the serum. So yes, I could see in the future Violet is like given the serum, but it works anyway with Andarna. Not too unlike how Violet can still communicate with her dragons on the Isles when there is no magic.
So let me just get this straight. You don't think there's any connection between what she says about how the bond blocking Leoan is similar to the bond blocking elixir from RSC? You think there's no connection?
I don't think there is any connection. I think that it is a very similar effect that she draws upon from a previous experience.
Oh my God, this is going to be at the top of our list for bets before. I cannot believe this right now. Oh my God. I thought I knew you. Wow.
Yeah, Yeah.
Okay, wait, hold on. Listeners, will you please tell me if you think this is a Easter egg line or if you, like Lexi, think that this is just connecting two things we know?
Let's get into Leothan's offer. After blocking out all the other dragons and riders and even making them leave the scene for privacy with only Andarna and Violet, the Irid gives his proposition. Instead of being shunned for something that was out of her control, Andarna should be given the opportunity to learn the Irid's ways and, what's more, choose their ways. He says that she has excellent instincts for using her Irid magic, but she needs instruction. This means that she needs to go home with him to where the Irids live across the sea, and it may take a few years for the others to accept Leothan's rogue decision to give Andarna this chance and let her come live with them, but by then she'll learn enough to know her truth. He believes that Andarna will adapt and embrace their peaceful ways, and when she does, the others will accept her too. Because after all, Andarna doesn't belong here with all this war and violence and death. Irids avoid this brutal world because they value peace above all else. But we can't help thinking of that phrase, you speak of peace only having known its privilege. Leothan cannot comprehend the emotional attachment and motive to fight for peace. In fact, he's like, here, I fixed the problem and now the one you care about is protected by the wards. When in reality, that's just a band-aid over the much bigger problem of helping the continent survive.
Andarna hears Leothan's offer and at first is like, no way in hell am I leaving my rider. We are bonded after all. Violet has been one of Andarna's closest connections since threshing. Maybe even before with Papa Sorrengail and that potential connection, but we don't have much information on it. After all, Andarna hatched because of hearing about the girl with the mind of a scribe and a heart of a writer. And on the flip side, here is everything Andarna has yearned for being handed her if she breaks her closest tie. Remember back in Fourth Wing when she said, quote, it's hard to love a second home as much as the first. This is Andarna's first home calling her back.
And giving her the chance she was robbed of weeks ago that she's been mourning ever since.
This is a heartbreaking decision that she is faced with, but Leothan anticipated this resistance, so he begins checking off the boxes. The wards are fired, so your human is safe. She is bonded to another that will sustain her life. You can always reforge the bond later if you so choose. But it all boils down to Violet. Andarna is so deeply connected to her, so she won't leave without hearing Violet's thoughts on the matter.
At first, the idea of Andarna leaving is literally unfathomable to Violet. That just doesn't happen between Rider and Dragon. As we discussed way earlier in this book, the Rider will experience physical pain when they are too far away from their dragon for even a day. And what's more, the bond has never been broken, again that we know of, between Rider and Dragon. What Leothan is offering is unthinkable. Like Andarna says, quote, our lives, our minds, the very energy that forms us is intertwined. Andarna wouldn't just leave behind war and suffering like Leothan is saying. She would leave behind all of her loved ones, Violet obviously and especially, but also Tyrrendor and Sigale, who have been her mentors and parent figures. And yet, Violet realizes that Andarna actually wants to go and be with her real family, like Nicole was just saying. Violet loves Andarna with all her heart, and because she loves her so much, she wants what's best for Andarna. Quote, I want you to feel complete. I want you happy and safe and thriving. I want you to live, even if it's not with me. Violet and Andarna's emotional connection runs so deep. They understand each other and support one another in such a special way. And it's also because of that support that Violet acknowledges being here with her and turning the Irids down would be selfish. Truly loving someone sometimes means knowing when to let them go. And Violet would rather take on the brunt of the unimaginable than take this opportunity from Andarna.
This is definitely one of those scenes that you read and you need to take a nap or just sob in your bed for a while because it drains you so much. And luckily, we know that we have our Miracle Made sheets that keep us cozy and the perfect temperature all night long. If you wake up too hot or too cold from crying about Andarna leaving, we highly recommend checking out Miracle Made bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can be at the perfect temperature all night long.
Traditional bed sheets can actually harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. It can lead to acne acne, allergies, and stuffy noses. It's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth and require up to 3 times less laundry.
No more gross odors. Plus, Miracle Made sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. And they feel just as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels.
Upgrade your sleep as the weather heats up. Go to trymiracle.com/FF to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our code FF at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Thank you so much, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
Back to the scene at hand that I am apparently just avoiding at all cost. Leoan says matter-of-factly, end the bond. But is it really that simple? Bonds are an intertwining of lives, minds, and the very energy that forms the rider and dragon, according to Andarna. But at the end of the day, that bond is merely just a magical tie. And Andarna is magic, meaning she can bend, add, and here, break the magical bond as she sees fit. And her being magic is the only reason she was able to create a bond in the first place. Tyrrendor bonded Violet by speaking to her first, and then it was later on the flight field when Andarna created that second bond by speaking to her. Skirt! What? Only an Irid can create a second bond. Here's why there has never been a rider with 2 dragons. Why leadership was possibly extra curious in Andarna, knowing that there's this extra magical element at play within her.
I looked back at the threshing chapters in Fourth Wing, and yes, Tyrrendor was the first who spoke to Violet when he said, "Step aside, Silver One." However, the first time Andarna speaks to Violet is after they land on the flight field, and she says, "Maybe I was saving you." So it actually was before Andarna gave her name, like Violet is saying here, but it was still after Tyrrendor. There is speculation whether the first time a dragon speaks to a rider is the only indication as to exactly when they bond. Violet met Andarna before Tyrrendor made his appearance, as Violet protected Andarna from the trio of douche canoes. Andarna swished her tail and blinked at Violet and interacted with her in those ways. After all, Andarna knew before threshing that Violet would be hers. So there is the question of, could Andarna actually have bonded Violet first? And that is why their bond doesn't seem to be completely severed, primarily based off how Violet can still wield her second signet after this whole encounter. We will be talking about that more shortly.
There is this moment in this scene where Violet mentions how she chose Andarna because she stepped in front of her at threshing. That language could potentially mean that instead of Andarna bonding Violet first, Violet bonded Andarna first. But then that has a whole extra magical question mark next to it. I'm leaning towards no, but that wording did give me pause for a moment.
Definitely. I'm leaning toward Tyrrendor bonding her first because it doesn't seem possible that other dragons like Tyrrendor could bond an already bonded rider. But maybe Andarna's bond doesn't count because she is magic. There's just a lot of questions around all of that if we do not take this at face value. There's also the theory that Leoan muted the connection between Andarna and Violet and the bond wasn't broken at all, but rather stifled by Leoan, as we see he's able to do with Violet and Tyrrendor. However, the descriptions of the nothingness versus a blanket over the bond like from the RSC serum are too different for me to believe Leoan didn't do more than just mute it. While I absolutely do not think the bond between Violet and Andarna severed completely, I do think Leoan thinks he broke the bond between the two of them. And like we were saying during the Irids episode, this 7th dragon den clearly don't fully comprehend the extent of how deep these bonds go. During the first part of the conversation where breaking the bond was presented as a possibility, Leoan encouraged Andarna to do it herself because she can bend magic, shape it, and break it as she sees fit. But as soon as she says she doesn't know how, it's almost like he interjects and breaks it for Andarna, causing Andarna to, quote, whip her head toward Leoan, which I interpret as, oh my god, you just went ahead and did it before I could say goodbye. Yeah. And like he kind of made that decision for her because he knew that's where she was heading. And he like ripped the Band-Aid off.
Well, she literally said she agrees, quote unquote, with a quote, "I do not know how," And literally before she even finishes her sentence, that's when the shrieking noise fills Violet's head, which no, I will not make that noise with the slide whistle. I love you all very much. I will not do that to your ears.
And yes, partly because of this hesitation in the first place and not getting closure with Violet, and maybe even feeling a flicker of the ghostly remains of their bond, like I'm saying that it's not completely severed, like he thinks it is, and ultimately needing her rider more than the Seventh Dragon Den is what will bring Andarna back sooner than any of us anticipated.
Maybe. Leoan, being oh so sentimental, wastes no time at all before launching into the air and blending into the sky. But Andarna only hesitates for a moment, looking at Violet like she's trying to say something before she too disappears into the sky.
The physical effects are immediate, and I genuinely don't think it's all in Violet's head or a physical reaction to her emotions. We may not think the bond was 100% severed, but I think it was like 99.5% broken.
Yeah.
A roar vibrates her bones, her ears ring, the edges of her vision darkens. Violet's heart stutters and her lungs struggle. She's literally unable to get air and, quote, no reason to seek it.
There's this line where Violet thinks, quote, I was infinite yet moored. Moored meaning being able to be really, really vast by attaching something like a boat to a cable or rope or anchor. AKA, she was infinite because of her connection to Andarna. God, this kills me because of its play on words with a powerful quote from book 1. Quote, I am the sky and the power of every storm that has ever been. I am infinite. But now she feels, quote, hollow and adrift in waters too vast to comprehend. God, this writing!
It's like her organs don't know how to work anymore without the tether to Andarna. But that's where Tyrrendor steps in, because without him demanding she breathe, without him forcing his strength into her, Violet very well may have died just now. Even days later, she will have to consciously make the effort to breathe, and she'll have to actively seek grounding as the emptiness threatens to consume her. Like you were just saying, I commend Rebecca's writing to put us in Violet's POV as she experiences this physical, emotional, and mental devastation.
Later, Mira will ask Violet how she replaced the power she lost when Andarna left. And Violet will be like, well, what are you talking about? Could Tyrrendor shoving power down the bond be how she replaced that power? Mira wouldn't really know because she doesn't have 2 dragons. I personally think this is a nod to what you were saying earlier, Lex, about the bond not being fully severed. Later, when Zaden is washing Violet's hair, which is like one of my favorite tropes in romance, I love it so much, she admits to him that she knows now why riders die when their dragons do. It's not only the sudden loss of power that luckily Tyrrendor supplied in full force. Quote, in that moment, I didn't know who I was, where I belonged, or why I should bother breathing. If Tyrrendor hadn't grounded me, I think I would have willingly floated away. Your dragon is an extension of who you are, and without them, who do you breathe for? But luckily, again, that is where Tyrrendor comes in.
And it goes back to what Andarna was saying, where their energies are intertwined with one another. Their life forces are tethered, you know? I just love this magic so much. And I love this line when Zaden approaches. Quote, I exist for Tyrrendor, but I live for Zaden. Ah, what a good way of saying how Violet needs to be alive because of Tyrrendor, but she wants to be alive because of Zaden.
This leads us now to the saddest montage we've ever done on the show. For 3 days, Violet does not leave her and Zaden's bed. She keeps repeating the phrase, quote, Andarna is gone, as if it's all she can think. But despite feeling so alone in her head from the missing best friend she's come to know, she is never physically alone. Brennan is reading in the chair by their bed, which, pause, is the same chair from the chair scene that Brennan's sitting in, which that makes me giggle. Violet's squad mates take over Brennan's place in the afternoon. They're an endless stream of company who don't really have anything to say, but their presence is appreciated. Zaden takes over at night, holding her both physically and mentally. And Tyrrendor is always with her, leaving their pathway wide open in a way he's really never done before, but he's always had with Violet. She can hear the conversations Tyrrendor has with the elders about Andarna's leaving, some of those elders who are most likely probably dead now. She can hear him bickering with Sigale about his excessive hovering over Violet. She can hear him and Zaden talk about making sure Violet eats. Like, I love this so much. Tyrrendor, you might be a sassy curmudgeon, but Dan, you're such a good dad in this moment. Over these 3 days, Violet hears celebrating out in the halls. After all, the wards are up. Arashia is seemingly saved in the ways that they couldn't even imagine days ago. It was one of the major reasons they went searching for the Irids around the Isles in the first place. And while Violet doesn't get angry with them for celebrating, because after all, she gets it, but she cannot bring herself to go out and join them. That would require her to feel something. How depressingly ironic it is that she now has this vacant emotion that Zaden has been walking the ice for all book.
It's interesting you make that comparison there, because I don't think of them as the same kind of vacant emotion at all.
No, because with Violet, it's vacancy and nothing's in its place.
Yeah.
And with Zaden, it's vacancy, but what's filling it is pure power.
I think of it as like pulling from the source, as a then is a relief of not feeling emotion. And Violet is grappling with the gaping hole in herself and consumed in her emotions that she's caved in on herself.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Mira got 72 hours of leave to check on Violet after she received a letter from Brennan about Violet's state. And she's not going to let her little sister be devoured by her grief. One of my low-key favorite lines from this book is when Mira says, quote, "I'm so sorry, but not sorry enough to lose you to your grief." While she understands losing a dragon runs so much deeper than, say, a breakup, she also understands Violet will not begin to get better laying in this bed. It's time for step 1 of doing something. Anything. Get up. Step 2. Bath. This is the tough love Violet really does need by now. Brennan, Zaden, Taryn, and her squad mates have been wonderful and there for her however they can, as they've offered her comfort and presence. Violet will reflect during her bath and talking to Zaden, though, quote, "I want him to take care of me, but I need him to kick my ass, and need beats want every time." Same situation here. Mira identifies when Violet needs tough love, and it works. You can tell there's still a lot of tension between Mira and Brennan's relationship. She never skips an opportunity to take a jab at him for faking his death. She is protective of Violet. They were there for each other after Brennan's supposed death and their father's death. And she can't quite forgive Brennan for leaving her and Violet like that.
Getting away from the sibling bickering, Violet and Zaden go into the bathing chamber for Violet to bathe off 3 days of misery. This is one of those scenes that seems so small, but in my opinion has one of the highest impacts when I look back on Onyx Storm. Violet, as she's in the bath, and her and Zaden are having a very vulnerable, open conversation with each other, all because, quote, "I don't have to pretend with Zaden. She is exactly how she is right now with him, not pretending to be finer than she is." When Andarna first leaves and Ree comes up to her, like, absolutely devastated for her friend, Violet has this line about wanting to make Ree feel better in that moment because she sees her friend devastated for her. Back to this scene with Zaden, though. Violet asks him for help, and this is a sentence that will forever stick with me. She says, quote, "Will you help me? The words are easier than I thought they'd be." We read so many books with strong FMCs who are badass bitches who take over the world. But rarely in these books do we see those same badass bitches asking for help. And more importantly, asking for help and letting those words be easy. I am someone who really struggles with asking for help. To be quite honest, I am not speaking alone. To be honest, you and I both are. It is not our best quality because there has been this narrative in our culture that you shouldn't ask for help. If you do, you're burdening others, you're being needy, weak, lazy, and people won't like you as a result. Then on the flip side, if you're strong, independent, and have a "I can do it on my own" attitude, you almost get a medal for being superior. This is a narrative that personally I've dealt with my whole life and been battling. I literally tore an ankle tendon in January because I didn't want to ask for help putting up a panel in my office. It also landed me in the ER back in college with severe dehydration because I wouldn't let my freaking roommates bring me a Gatorade when I was deathly ill. Again, not one of my best moments. It's one of these habits that I'm pretty sure our husbands desperately want to shake out of us, which brings me back to the scene and why it is so special. We both look up to Violet so much for her resilience, her strength, and her ability to overcome. But I also love that she lets Zaden take care of her, and it feels, for the most part, guilt-free. We'll get into more of that in a second. Because this "I am strong and I can ask for help," it's not an either or.
Exactly. And there's this Violet needing help with Zaden right now, and then she knows that she needs to kind of get her shit together as far as she's concerned.
But then it goes back to it's not that either or. She's allowing herself to, in the moment, ask for help and let it be easy, and yet knowing that she does have really high standards for herself and she wants to get back into gear.
Exactly. It's like he's helping her have that bridge, right?
Yes.
Because despite being the only known rider to survive the severing of a dragon bond and not becoming a venom as a result, Violet is being incredibly hard on herself. Again, there is that way of not being either or, but now she's kind of getting into that mentality here. She is the daughter of General Loth Sorrengail, who would be horrified to see her daughter collapse in on herself like this. Remember how after Violet was tortured for 5 days, her mother told Violet that Sorrengails walk off the field? That's the kind of toughness Violet holds herself up to. She even thinks how if Andarna returned and saw her like this, she wouldn't be worthy of being bonded to her. Oh, Violet. The war doesn't pause. Between the western line crumbling, Zaden opening the borders with thousands of people coming into Tyrrendor, and being in a standoff with King Tari while Haldan really wants to declare war on them. So Violet can't shut down. She can't give up. She holds herself accountable to being there for her loved ones, for being a weapon to fight against the venom. Andarna told her at the beginning of this book that it's okay to grieve. And then when she told Andarna the same thing recently, her dragon told her that she doesn't. Violet may have been honest when she said that she's working on it, but this gaping void without Andarna, it's a whole new level of all-consuming grief. If she doesn't focus on what's ahead of her, she might lose herself. She needs to anchor herself with these goals and the goings on to literally keep breathing and to keep living.
I think about it like after, I know Mira literally says it's not a breakup, but it's kind of the one thing we can equate it to. I think about after like a really, really tough breakup, like having a goal of like, I'm going to start going to these, I don't know, insert random class that I never would have gone to here because I'm going to become a new person, or I need to get bangs, or I need it's like having that desperation of clinging to something that is outside of the grief that you're experiencing.
Exactly. And especially in this case here too, when it has such physically mental consequences for her, if that makes sense, she needs that all the more.
Yeah. Oh, but it's peaceful bath time over because Violet's older siblings are one step away from drawing weapons on each other. Ah, looks like Mira finally told Brennan about that trip to see Grandmama Niara. Technically, he actually figured it out because of the bracelet, but here we are nonetheless because let's get into it. We learn from Violet eavesdropping, and by eavesdropping, I mean literally listening out of the open door, yet her siblings are too close to murdering each other to notice her in the room, that Mira went to go see Grandmama Niara and get some answers as to why months were omitted from Lilith's journal. Mira has been pretty obsessively reading these journals because it feels like her one tie to the parents that she's been missing. Violet has Papa Sorrengail's research, Brennan has Arashia, and Mira has these journals. And she found it odd that after being a consistent journaler, suddenly in the middle of a journal book, the same summer that Lilith and Asher left Brennan and Mira with Niara, while Violet went off supposedly with Asher and Lilith, those were the months that Lilith purposefully didn't write anything. Naturally, Mira's antenna went up.
For as much of a strategist that Brennan is, he really does have tunnel vision sometimes, especially when it comes to their mother. He just doesn't want anything to do with her, so it's almost like he can't even comprehend that there could be more to this. It's like, for being such a brilliant strategist, he needs to live up to it a little more than he has the last 2 books that we've known him.
I think he was a brilliant strategist in the eyes of Navarre, who molded him.
Yes.
And then I think when all that shit hit the fan and everything he knew went out the window, he's grasping on to things that he does know, like his hatred for Lilith's choices. I'm not going to say for Lilith herself, but for Lilith's choices. As Mira's antenna went up, she went to talk to Niara to see what was up during that time. Because when Lilith and Asher returned, Niara stopped speaking to the Sorrengail family. We learned during that time Violet was taken to be dedicated. Mira originally assumed this meant either dedication in Navarre or Poromil, but we will soon learn that nope, Violet was taken only by Asher to go to Umbriel so that they could do the full ritual dedication. Remember, it is outlined on the continent to dedicate a child before they come of age, and Violet was 2 years old at this time.
Well, next episode's archives topic is the Temple of Dune and dedication. See, I promise it is coming. I do want to very briefly go over what we know about dedication, because the truth is we don't know a whole lot, and I believe that is the point right now for where we are in the story. The concept of dedication is introduced in this book, and then with the rest of the plot line for the rest of the series, we will be exploring it more and what exactly that means for Violet. At least that's my assumption. When you dedicate yourself to a deity, specifically Dune in this case, you become a lifetime servant of the goddess of war and strength. To be even partially dedicated means you are touched by the goddess and can wield her wrath to be a conduit of her. We're talking this up to greater magic at work here when deities are involved.
But the full ritual on Umbriel was halted. The priestess started the process, but then said that they can only complete the dedication on children whose futures are certain. I really want to know how they know a child's future is certain, but that's a question for another day. Violet still had paths to choose from. One of those paths being, quote, the heart that beats for you or within you would do the wrong thing for the right reason, reach for unspeakable power and turn dark. I love a prophecy with a twist, because it's not Violet's heart choosing to turn dark. No, it is the heart that beats for her, Zaden.
I believe Rebecca said in an interview, I don't have the source though, I'm sorry, that she originally planned for Violet to be the one to turn Venin at the end of book 2, but Rebecca ended up making it Zaden instead. I wonder if this is a little nod to that, or the prophecy was already planned out when it was supposed to be Violet who turned. Or perhaps in a alternative universe, if Violet chose a different path, like where she and Zaden weren't together or something, it would have indeed been her who turned. I understand there's also the question of how Theophony was able to be dedicated in the first place all those years ago, since she ended up choosing a path to become a Venin. And while we don't know the answer, and I'm honestly not sure if we ever will, we do know Dune is a wrathful goddess, and entering her temple will slice the soul of an attendant, like Theophony, who has shunned her grace. So perhaps that alludes to how big of a deal it is that Theophony could and would do such a thing. Like, she went against her path that was laid out for her, and because she did that and turned, that just really, really pissed off Dune.
What if Theophany is the reason that Violet only was partially dedicated? If Theophany is this cautionary tale of someone who does go full dedication and then turns Venin, then there's a slicing of the soul that's not in the super great way. So that's why Dune's temple attendants started looking ahead and seeing what paths they might choose. And if there's even an option where they might go Venin, they say, no, we won't do that because you could be super powerful. But going back to why Violet was dedicated in the first, or attempted dedication in the first place, and here's really where shit hits the fan. We learned from a Rebecca Yarros interview pre-Onyx Storm that Violet will have to come to terms with why her hair is silver. We can now assume that one of those reasons is because she'll have to come to terms with being touched by a goddess and what all that entails, and probably one of the other reasons being because of the feeling of almost betrayal from her father. Asher loved Violet and acted like she was perfect in every way and his protege. But it turns out that all along, according to Niara, so big asterisk here, he went to Dune to cure Violet of her chronic illness. Back in book 1, Violet had a dream about a conversation with her father where she was much, much younger, and she asked him what if she wants to be a writer like Mom and Brennan. And Asher said, quote, "You're not like them, Violet. That's not your path." Rereading this passage with the context of Onyx Storm, it's almost like he doesn't want her to be close to that type of power because she might choose the path where she'd turn.
You're so right. Oh my goodness.
I knew that flashback had to mean something else. Like, I knew there was more to it.
Asher also seems to have taken Violet to get dedicated without Lilith's approval. There's an epigraph from the journal of Captain Lilith Sorrengail. Quote, "Asher returned today. God's help us if anyone finds out. I'm not sure I'll ever forgive him for what he's done to her." If both parents dropped the older children off with Grandmama Niara for a summer and went off with Violet, what were they doing, and how did it all go down with Papa Sorrengail going on a ship with Violet to Umbriel? Did Lilith know he was taking their daughter to Umbriel, maybe under the impression he was researching there, but she didn't know he was going to try to dedicate her? What were they doing with Violet beforehand, where all three of them were gone in the first place? I feel like we're only scratching the surface of these two parents, and I really hope we learn more. There are so many missing puzzle pieces. But what does being touched by the goddess mean for Violet's future? For instance, there are theories that she'll be able to communicate with Dune herself, or this power will somehow contribute to the cure for Zaden, with mention of the soul tying back into so many facets of deities, these two, and venin. Or Violet will become fully dedicated, and as a high priestess, she will be able to channel the power of Dune as well. The high priestess in Umbriel did say that she still sees Dune's temple among Violet's potential paths, and that it isn't too late to choose a lifetime of service to Dune. There's a theory that during the missing 12 hours, Violet did become fully dedicated, and her hair is now completely silver in the final chapter. When asked about that in the Variety article, Rebecca simply answered, "Interesting. So who knows?" I personally feel like that would have been hinted at or mentioned by Brennan when seeing her again for the first time. So I do think this would be a future thing to happen versus during the 12 missing hours.
Yeah, I agree. Because like Brennan literally is like, "Violet, what's on your hand?"
Yeah.
And you think he would be like, "Violet, what's with your hair? What's on your hand?" Like, that's why I can't get behind this theory quite yet.
So let's go into more possible theories. Could Violet's partial dedication somehow link back to Papa Sorrengail's research? And if you're like, what the heck, Lexi, you're really back onto Papa Sorrengail's research? Just stay with me here. Because he left so many breadcrumbs behind for everyone to piece together. Not just Violet, but also Brennan and even Dane. Could taking her to Umbriel to be dedicated play a bigger role in the grand scheme of our story? His research, the Isles, and even defeating the Venin. I don't have the faintest clue how that would connect with all the dots, but it's definitely possible because nothing Papa Sorrengail did seems to be a coincidence. No matter what, you know who I bet will have some more answers for Violet? Grandmama Niara! The High Priestess said that Violet's path was unclear because, quote, "the heart that beat for you or within you would do the wrong thing for the right reason, reach for unspeakable power, and turn dark." Who has been saying that he lives for Violet? Whose heart beats for Violet? Zaden. The prophecy.
Oh, you mean that she'll be the death of him? Zaden?
We're not talking about that. That's not part of this prophecy. We'll call it a prophecy at least. It speculates that Zaden would do the wrong thing for the right reason, reach for unspeakable power, and turn dark. Does this mean that Violet has chosen her path because she has chosen Zaden, even when he is Venin? I wonder if her having solidified her choice in choosing Zaden, it'll play a bigger role next book. Because despite him turning Asim and telling her not to look for him, she'll still choose Zaden. Back on Umbriel, Violet told the High Priestess that she chose her life when asked if she chose his path for herself. To which the High Priestess replies, quote, "Ah, then it is good we did not complete your dedication." I wonder if because Violet's heart, her soul, chooses Zaden, who is a Venin, Dune might not be happy with her. It seems like a stretch, and it would have to happen after she holds the Temple Stone to kill Theophony, or maybe her choosing Zaden prevents her from being able to get fully dedicated. I don't know. This is just another one of those situations where I'm waving my hands and saying something is here. If this whole conversation about dedication seems a little chaotic, you know that we really like structure, and this is hard, just like throwing spaghetti at the walls. But oh yeah, it's Zaden who turned Venin, not Violet. And with Mira closely watching Violet, expecting her to turn at any minute, Zaden shifts the spotlight away from his love. He's not going to let her take the heat for this. Which means that he tells Mira, "Hey, I'm the problem. It's me." Unsurprisingly, Mira does not take the news that Zaden is Venin very well. Like, at all.
Mira has already been left out of so much crucial information for 2 books. And while yes, she definitely left Violet out of some very, very critical information about her own dedication, the fact is that she's been in the presence of a Venin now for months. And her sister, who she protects with all her might, has been dating and in a relationship with one of them. It's quite the secret to have been left out of.
Plus, Brennan knowing too, he and Violet have been keeping another secret from her.
Not to mention that she's also been on the front lines more than all 3 of the people in this room. She's seen the evilness that these Venin are capable of firsthand time and time again. Honestly, I don't blame her for pulling a dagger on Zaden and threatening Violet that he's going to kill her. But here's this line again. She says he won't, meaning he won't kill me or he won't hurt me. And then she continues, quote, "I pour every ounce of my certainty, my trust into the words." Going back again to That Makes 3 discovery from last episode about the Venin having a pattern of not hurting the ones they love. Violet is taking that as fact now.
And for the exact reasons she advocated for Zaden when talking to Riddick. He has only ever pulled from the source to save her or to save others. He's a good Venin.
But nevertheless, the damage is done, and Mira storms out of the room. Little do they know, the next time they'll see their sister is when Theophony has a knife to her throat. But that's for next episode.
Fast forward 2 days. Mira hasn't told anyone, just like Zaden figured, by breaking through her shields. Again, another nod to his growing signet and reading her intentions. Just like we talked about last episode, Navarre is only one step away from declaring war on Tyrrendor for letting Poromage citizens through their border, therefore defying the Cenarium's order. Haldan has troops stationed along the Chaldeer border with Tyrrendor, waiting for King Tari to give the order. In retaliation, Zaden has cut off Tyrrendor's most valuable resource to Navarre, Palladium, a key ingredient in making alloy. So now Navarre is not able to produce more weapons to power their wars and fight against the Venin, which freaks King Tari out, and he's ordering / begging Zaden to restore the flow of Palladium. Zaden says he'll do this when Tari confirms their alliance stands and the Second Aratian Accord is still intact, which states he has control of his province's army, and that the Aratian riot, which includes our whole crew here right now and anyone else who turned traitor in part 2 of Iron Flame, that they are safe when they return to Basgiath. In fact, I'm realizing by the end of this book, it's still up in the air if this group goes back to Basgiath, especially Violet now. We're right back where we started at the end of Fourth Wing.
Oh my god, I remember these debates. I don't think they're going back again because Violet's a duchess now. What is she going to do? Go back to class?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Zaden is also in charge of the Tyrrendor army, which makes up 1/3 of Navarre's forces. So he's kind of got the upper hand on King Tari and Haldan right now, and he will do what he wants, which is open Tyrrendor's borders. Violet is back in class with her squad during the day, and she's really struggling with runes now, even more than before, because Terran's power strands are just so difficult to work with.
In classes, Violet's squad mates are becoming experts in something called the careful smile. It's half sympathy for Violet's loss, half encouragement for her to keep working to get back out there, and 100% please don't go catatonic again. With these smiles meaning very well, they are doing their best with wanting to give Violet that, hey, we're here for you nudge. All except one. Kat doesn't bother with the careful smile, unsurprisingly. I would have been shocked if she did. And Violet actually really appreciates it. Kat is treating her like she always does, and it's giving Violet some sense of normalcy in a world that feels like it just flipped upside down.
Kat's kind of got the same attitude that Mira had with Violet to get her out of bed. No coddling, just being straight with her, and Violet really does appreciate that.
Yeah.
Something we haven't touched on yet, at least this episode, but have definitely brought up before, is the ongoing argument between Zaden and Bodhi. Zaden wants Bodhi to stay safe because he's going to be Tyrrendor's duke in the not-so-distant future because of Zaden knowing he'll eventually progress as a Venin. Bodhi, on the other hand, he's a writer. He has zero intention of staying tucked away so he can be a leader. But right now, the argument has been taken to a whole new level as Bodhi informs Zaden he is not going to graduate from Basgiath War College. It's April right now, and he should be graduating in July. So it's only a few more months.
Like we do with most arguments on the show, let's look at it from both sides, starting with Bodhi. This is the second time in this stretch of chapters he's fighting back on Zaden's orders of wanting him to be in the future Duke's safety lane. Previously, it was before the battle earlier this stretch. Zaden wanted him to stay off the battlefield and instead stay deep within Ryerson House along with Auric, while Zaden goes out to fight. As someone who also has trained to be a fighter, who is pretty damn lethal, and has always been told his role is to protect Zaden, not the other way around, this is a non-starter for Bodhi. There's a surface level fury. He doesn't want to be Duke. He suddenly feels like his wishes, even down to not wanting to finish Basgiath, aren't being heard or counted for. He is at the mercy of Zaden's choices instead, and that doesn't really fly very well with Bodhi. But also by Zaden actively readying Bodhi for this position, that means that Zaden sees a very real possibility that he will not be Duke for much longer. So by Bodhi becoming Duke, it means he's also lost Zaden. And Bodhi looks up to Zaden immensely. Never forget when Rebecca Yarros was asked what each character would order for a drink at the bar, Rebecca said that Bodhi would order a beer because it's what Zaden ordered. He's not even wanting to give Zaden the option to let him be Duke. That way Zaden has to hold his own shit together, or else Arashia won't have anyone. But then there's this one more layer to it. Bodhi says, quote, "I'm not your backup plan." We have not been quiet about Bodhi's role as Zaden's shadow, this series, always being 2 steps behind and always forgotten about when Zaden is in the spotlight. Bodhi doesn't want one more area of his life to be labeled as I was the second choice. He is good at fighting. He wants to say where he feels like he's in damn control and damn good at what he does.
On the other hand, Zaden is a realist about his future, and he knows he won't be Duke for much longer. But if he has no heir to lead Tyrrendor, then it will fall into King Tari's possession. No way will it go back to Leoan or someone else who has proved themselves loyal to House Ryerson, especially with all the tension going on right now. And they've sacrificed too much, worked too hard to get Tyrrendor back. Yes, Zaden already has the emerald made by now for Violet, and he intends to marry her, so she is officially Duchess of Tyrrendor. But Bodhi is his blood. He is officially next in line, and Zaden wants to protect his cousin and, more so, their province at all costs. As someone who needs to be in control, this is how Zaden is handling an out-of-control situation. And he's frustrated that Bodhi is not understanding the cost of the possibility of Tyrrendor being taken away from them, where they stick up for the innocent.
Watching this fight is like a bucket of ice water on Violet. She has been feeling like Zaden's been so at peace in Arashia because they're on day 80. He seems like he's getting so hopeful for the future and trying to, help Brennan help mend himself. But now she's realizing it's not quite that black and white. As Zaden says, he's going to keep fighting for the days he might have left with Violet, but the peace and the drive that he's been showing is also a result of Zaden putting the pieces together, so should he fall fully to Venonism, there's another plan. The bucket of ice water doesn't last very long, though, because Violet, have you been introduced to the throne? Yes, of course this is meant to be like, we're going to go off and like bang, bang, bangity bang on the throne, but also how brilliant of foreshadowing that Zaden is here in the scene arguing with Bodhi about prepping him taking over as dukeship, and it literally ends the chapter with Violet on the throne.
In this signet power segment of the episode, let's move to the power of precognition by turning our full attention to additional important foreshadowing moments for the rest of this book, as well as more speculation for books 4 and 5.
When prepping for battle, Zaden is calmly in command of the whole riot as Duke, which, quote, the weight of that responsibility would buckle my knees. All I can think during this part is, next book, and I think Violet will handle it much better than she thinks. Violet tells Taryn that she can't tell leadership to make decisions faster, to which he says, quote, then perhaps we need to make our own decisions, which they do. And this is also incredible foreshadowing for the next book where she will be the decision maker. There is just so much Violet is the leader. follow Violet leader foreshadowing.
Taryn assures Violet she would know if something happened to Sigale or Zaden. And yes, Violet will know when something happens to them, specifically Sigale toward the end of the final battle when she is caught.
During the battle, we see Wyvern with orange and green flames. That means we have now seen blue fire, green fire, cherry red fire, and orange fire from Wyvern.
I'm pretty sure the orange flames are dragons, and it's this way of showing the battle is underway over on the front line.
Maybe, but that still means we've seen green, blue, cherry red, and that's it. Green, blue, and cherry red. Orange aside, these colors sound a hell of a lot like the dragon dens. We are only missing brown, black, and of course Irid, and maybe orange, but I still think it was Wyverns. This is ominous and, in my opinion, quite worrisome. Like, what will Blackfire Wyvern be? Could this be another reason why they want an Irid? To make Wyvern off of her? Like, does making a Wyvern require some part of a dragon and that's how they get the colors? You look like you're about to say that's a fun theory, Nicole.
I think we have read some things very differently this stretch of chapters. The way Andarna says to Violet when they're arguing about her being at the Temple of Dune, quote, I am an extension of you. Oh, so much foreshadowing for what's about to happen in just a few pages that actually we already covered here, but I had to bring it out anyway. Then there's even more foreshadowing for the Leothan encounter when Violet tells Andarna, quote, you always say that you chose me, but I stood in front of you on that threshing field, and I would do it again. The Temple of Dune column explodes when the Wyvern comes crashing into it after the wards go up, and the Wyvern die. Quote, chunks of marble fly. I think it's a piece of this temple stone that the high priestess gives to Arik as a dagger for Violet to take down Theophony.
Yes, I agree. Quinn in Arashia is taking a leaf out of Zaden and Violet's book, spending every night with her girlfriend, Jax. Which, twist the fucking knife, Rebecca. This is such a minor but heavily impactful foreshadowing because mentioning Jax, Quinn's girlfriend, right before Quinn's death, where she will literally tell Imogen to tell Jax that she was the best part of her life. Ow!
While we're talking about Quinn, we get this beautiful short scene between her and Violet as she helps Violet with runes in a way no one else is really able to help. It's that last bit of connection with Quinn before we get to Imogen's chapter. And then there's what Quinn says, quote, "They're going to be hopelessly lost when we leave them in July." Oh, he will be leaving us much sooner than that, Quinn. Every day, the line retreats closer to Drathis. The Venin are pissed about the wards going up around most of Tyrrendor and are taking it out on the front lines. In the same sentence, Violet reflects that the atmosphere around here feels like the air before a thunderstorm, charged with inevitable violence. Foreshadowing for the final showdown with Theophony, who turns out to be a storm wielder during the attack on Drathis.
It would not be an episode of Fantasy Fangirls if we didn't have some Corden watch. We learned that it's basically blockaded, except for the entrance that's by the sea. So Corden's going down early next book is what I'm saying. Violet mentions that she manages a rune that both hardens surfaces and softens them. Sexual innuendo aside, Violet will use this rune later when Taryn is captured in battle, and she needs to soften the rope so he can tear out of him.
When Violet heads off to train with Felix, he gives her a scolding about how she needs to follow orders better. This is going to stick with her, as well as when Brennan drills into her that she can only have one objective for the next fight. She's learning the difficulties of being a leader, which, yes, can include following orders and have better perception of what her presence means for those around her. After all, the temple attendants were targeted by the Venin because Violet was there. She is always seeking to save everyone, and sometimes saving people means leaving them be, which goes against what anyone would think, but as a powerful writer, she does need to understand that. Just as her squad needs to learn boundaries and not always go running off after her when she makes mistakes. I think this is foreshadowing for the next battle, but also the rest of the series too, as they balance friendship and wanting to save people and having to be strategic in battle. We've donned our signets, so now let's tap into our mind of a scribe and examine the meaning of key epigraphs from the stretch of chapters, if we haven't already, which we mostly have.
I was going to say, I only have one epigraph to note in addition to what we've talked about with the Dune dedication, etc., from earlier. And this is from chapter 51. Quote, "For maximum potential, riders should be stationed close to their villages if possible. Nothing is a more effective motivator than seeing one's home on fire." This is from Tactics Part 2, a personal memoir by Lieutenant Lyron Panchek. Over a year ago, Rebecca Yarros was in an interview, and apparently we say that a lot this episode, and someone asked her, "What's a question you wish someone would ask you?" And Rebecca's answer was, "Why has Panchek written a memoir as a lieutenant?" Well, now this is his second memoir as a lieutenant that he's written. Backstage of the Denver show, she gave us some insight into writing these epigraphs, because when she was concocting them, she was giggling and kicking her feet in the air, thinking that it was so funny that a lieutenant who has barely had any experience thinks himself so important and wise that he would have not one, but two memoirs to fill. No wonder this guy made a deal with the Venin. It's just, wow. Now let us step into the archives, where each episode, Lexi educates us all on a world-building topic to help us better understand this world and the magic / people within it.
Today's archives topic is the Venin and the wards. We're answering the common question about why wards are still important for protection even though the Venin have proved to function within them. First, let's summarize how the Venin magic works outside of wards. The TLDR of it is that outside of the wards, the Venin feel a strong pull toward magical sources, and they are at their most powerful. We see this pull to magic a lot through Zaden, when he mentions a few times that outside the wards, he can feel the power beneath his feet stronger than within the wards, and how it's extra hard to not pull when it's just calling to him outside of the wards like that. I believe this pull toward magic isn't just referring to the source, aka the ground, but also sources of magic, like when a writer wields within a drained territory, as the Venin are drawn to that magic, like we learned in Inca. Magic outside the wards is also wilder. This doesn't just affect the Venin, but the dragons and riders as well. Magic outside the wards make it more difficult for the dragons to communicate, and even feels different to channel from for the riders that are used to wielding within the wards. But this wild magic is easier and more tempting for Venin to pull from. Now let's compare that to how the Venin are within the wards. Previously, it was assumed that Venin were powerless once they cross the wards, Wyvern die, and Venin can't channel within the wards. This is why I was so adamant during our Fourth Wing coverage that Jack couldn't be Venin, because we were all under the false belief that the wards stop Venin from being able to pull from the source, full stop. But it turns out to not be true, as we all know, and I have a big egg on my face. They can be in the wards. They can pull from the source. They can turn venom within the wards and use magic within those wards. But they are weakened by the wards and they aren't at full power. It's like their strength and power are dimmed because the magic is not wild and can't be bent to their control as easily within the wards. To quote Jack fucking Barlow, we can still feed from the ground, still channel enough to survive, enough to fool them. We might not be at full strength, capable of wielding greater magic under your protections, but make no mistake, we are already among you. We see a great example of this with Jack fucking Barlow when he drained his holding cell of magic, walls and all, and the alloy medallion Violet gives him after answering her questions. This was all within the Navarre Wars, or even when the cadet drains from the earth during signet sparring earlier in this book. This also means lower level Venom who haven't pulled recently and don't have red eyes or any of the other known Venom traits can blend in and no one would be able to tell, except other Venom, since they can feel when another initiate or ASIM is close by. With there being so much unknown about the Wardstone runes and how they work, we have to assume there are some runes on the Wardstones that weaken the Venom's power, or at the very least block the bond between Wyvern and their creators, which makes them die. More on this in a moment. Or maybe the runes that control the magic within the wards create the consequence of Venom's weakened power. We know that there was a rune on the Biscaeth Wardstone preventing the Griffin Flyers from channeling and wielding their gifts, so it would make sense that there are other runes that target the Venom's power too. Let's talk about the Wyvern and the wards, because this is where it gets more cut and dry. We know that Wyvern are created by the Venom and have a runed Onyx Stone within them that allows the Venom to channel into their Wyverns. This makes the Wyvern's lives tethered to their creator. They exist because of the Venom's power. Wyvern literally cannot enter the wards. The magic of the wards cut off that power between the Venom and Wyvern, which makes the Wyvern die as soon as it no longer has that tether to its creator. The exact specifics of how the wards do this isn't clear, but I'm assuming it has something to do with the runes on the Wardstone and /or the magic of the wards themselves. Shifting a little to how the Arashia wards have been, with only 6 dragon breeds breathing on it before Leoan comes to fully activate them. The Arashia wards aren't working successfully like the Biscaeth ones, and they've been deteriorating and weakening more and more over these past few months. Back in Iron Flame, when the Arashia wards were at their strongest, the Wyvern would indeed fall. But instead of dying permanently, the Onyx Stone with the complex rune within the Wyvern would still be humming, and the Wyvern could come back to life, as Mira and Violet saw. Over the course of Onyx Storm, Wyvern have been able to take advantage of the weakening Arashia wards and cross into them. They've been able to get further and further within the wards as they fail more and more before the Wyvern crash. If we were to cut them open, the Onyx Stones would still be buzzing, because again, these wards haven't been at full activation. All in all, the Venom don't like to attack within wards because number one, their Wyvern can't function whatsoever, at least within fully activated wards, and the Venom prefer to rely on this advantage to be able to, fly in the sky, have firepower, and keep the dragons occupied. Number two, they like to be at full power and never want to be vulnerable, plain and simple, both with their own magical abilities and strength, and of course with their Wyvern to aid in the attacks. So, I hope that this clears up some of the confusion, because it is a good question. Why don't the Venom just go within the wards? Because they can still work within them, but it really does come back to they want to be at their full strength and with all of their tools at their disposal, which of course includes Wyvern.
Let us close out this episode with taking flight with our favorite moments. When Violet wakes up after her/Zaden's dream, she thinks, quote, "The worst of the storm has passed." Rebecca Yarros writing, it strikes again. Right after the false hope section that we talked about last episode, we get the worst of the storm is passing, just before shit truly hits the fan. During the second signet figuring out scene, we see Zaden pacing just like Sigale did on Hedotus. I love that him and his girl are so similar.
The tagline of this book is Brave the Dark. And what do you know? Here Violet is quite literally braving the dark. Like Terrence says, quote, "We are the dark."
See, I thought it referred to the very end where Zaden becomes that darkness with the shadows and the do-do-do-do-do. And she's braving the dark because she's like, I love you.
I think double meaning. Absolutely. I love how proud Terran is of Violet and how much she's grown with her lightning wielding. Like when he compliments her by saying, "Impressive." That is major praise from this curmudgeon. Then just another Terran line, quote, "It's been ages since I've honored the color of my scale in such a manner." When he's just so proud of himself for how he took down a Wyvern. And then another one, because apparently I'm not done with Terran quotes, quote, "Its wing spur broke off in my leg. I will live." It does not. Taryn resorts back to calling Andarna Golden One when he's chastising her for having a temper tantrum. She then gets mad that he called her a child, which, yes, calling her Golden One is like calling her a child. He hasn't called her Golden One since Fourth Wing, before she entered the dream of sleep and grew into an adolescent. Then Andarna calls Violet Silver One in this scene, which is, of course, Taryn's nickname for Violet. She's embracing her inner Taryn so much and wants to be just like him.
When Brennan is trying to get back into Zaden and Violet's room, Zaden offers to kill him if they want. And Mira comes back with a quote, and give him another opportunity to fake his own death. I love that Mira will never get past Brennan doing that for 6 years, and she will take every opportunity to roast him for it.
I love just the way that Zaden is with Violet as he helps her in the bathtub. I know you've already talked about this, Nicole, but I also just love this little line, quote, hate to break it to you, love, but 3 days was never going to help you in that subject. It's joking and gentle, even reassuring as he teases her in the nicest way possible. And of course, I just swoon every time he says love. Then when Violet thinks, quote, the simple pleasure of his hands working soap through my hair gives me a flicker of hope that I might just be able to feel something positive again. Sometimes when life feels really, really tough and it's difficult to put one foot in front of the other, something as simple as a sunny day or a good smelling candle or really good food is a small but impactful reminder that there is good in this life, even if it's hard to find it right now.
I love Rebecca Yarros. She rips my heart out. And it feels so good when she does. But I will never forgive her for slamming the door shut on Throne Scene 2.0 at the end of Chapter 55. Also, the fact that it's Chapter 55 is just infuriating for our Akhtar fans. If you know, you know.
All right, friends. That is a wrap on today's jam-packed episode 10. Thank you so much for listening, as we only have 2 more episodes left of our Onyx Storm deep dive.
We will see you again next Monday for episode 11, where we are covering chapters 56 through 60. It is time to save Mira and embrace eyes here. Dane! I'm so excited. Next book we will be covering after Onyx Storm is the Kindred's Curse saga by Penn Cole, starting with book 1, Spark of the Everflame, on May 5th. Keep in mind that even though we're covering the first book, it will contain spoilers for the 3 books that are currently out. Link to get these books are in the show notes.
We'd love to give the biggest warm welcome to our newest Iron Squad members.
Thank you so much for joining Holly W., Samantha H., Tegan G., Christian, Fallon W., and Kayla A. Welcome.
We appreciate you so much. Thank you for supporting the show. And if you're like, hey, I want my name shouted on the podcast and to be showered with all the love and attention too, be sure to join our fan club at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes.
Thank you, as always, to our resident scribe curator, aka our content researcher, Brooke, and our executive producer, aka our sanity manager, who's literally onboarding our new community assistant right now. Peyton, welcome to the team.
We are very active on social media, so please be sure to give us a follow on Instagram and / TikTok at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it would make our day if you hit that subscribe button to keep following along.
While you're hitting buttons, if you could hit that 5-star rate and review button, that would be incredible. Not just for this podcast, but for any podcast you listen to. It is so helpful for getting the word out there for other people to find the show. And last but not least, please share this episode with your fellow Onyx Storm friends. If you and your group text was like, how the fuck does this dedication stuff work? Hopefully we cleared it up a little bit for you this episode, and I hope that
we all just embrace the confusion together.
We will all embrace the confusion together.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.